The Framingham School Committee consists of 9 members elected from each city district for a 2-year term. The mayor serves as an ex officio member by virtue of office and only votes to break a tie vote. The school committee adopts and oversees the administration of an annual operating budget for the school department, appoints a superintendent of the schools, and works to make all reasonable rules and regulations for the management of the public school system. The following school committee meeting coverage is brought to you by the Government Channel, a service of the City of Framingham.
School committee meeting of Wednesday, June 3rd, 2026. I call this meeting to order at 7:06 p.m. School committee meetings provide American Sign Language, Spanish, Portuguese interpretation via Zoom. You can find the instructions on how to access live interpretation on the agenda on the school committee's website and when you register to join via Zoom. A reminder to members and all in attendance to speak slowly to allow time for interpretation, as well as to speak into the microphones, otherwise those on Zoom cannot hear you. In attendance tonight, we have District 1, Rich Robles, District 2, Lorena Tovar, District 3, Jen Moshe, District 4, Adam Freudberg, District 5, Judy Steyer, District 6, Brent Lewis, District 7, Kyle Shepard, District 8, Jessica Barnhill, District 9, William Labarge, Student Advisory Chair, Deborah Davitoria. Ex officio Mayor Charlie Sisitsky will not be in attendance tonight. From the district, we have Superintendent Dr. Tremblay, Executive Director of Finance and Operations, Lincoln and Lynch, and the Assistant Superintendent of Pre-K to 12 Education, Ann Ludis. The meeting is live on the Government Channel and can be viewed live on Facebook on the Framingham Public Schools Facebook page. A recording of this meeting will be archived on the City of Framingham and School Committee's websites as soon as possible. Meeting materials can be accessed on the committee's website page with tonight's meeting date. Members of the public can participate via Zoom, specifically during public comment. To join the meeting for public comment, join through Zoom or by calling the number located on the agenda, which is 305-224-1968, and the webinar ID is 891-8393-9073. Tonight's agenda is public comment, announcements from the chair, City Pride Month proclamation, Student Advisory Committee presentation, Superintendent of Schools update, Assistant Superintendent for Pre-K to 12 Education update, School Building Project update and vote on the educational program, Executive Director of Finance and Operations update, subcommittee reports including Finance and Operations and Policy, approval of gifts, field trips, and minutes, followed by adjournment. Public comment, we'll start with public comment. At every regularly scheduled school committee meeting, we reserve 15 minutes for members of the public who may wish to speak on a topic within the school committee's purview. Guidelines for public comment are located on the school committee's website. All comments will be accepted as advice to the school committee, but may not be responded to tonight. If you request follow-up, provide your contact information and indicate in your remarks if you would like follow-up. If the matter is in the school committee's purview, we will respond. If in the superintendent's, he or his office will. If you're participating via Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature and participate via audio. If by phone, press *9 if you'd like to speak when recognized. Again, the call-in number 1305-224-1968, webinar ID 891-8393-9073. Remarks including any personal attacks to anyone, including members of the administration or members of the school committee, will not be tolerated. We will have an additional public comment at the end of this meeting. All right, we'll start in person. Chris Mulroney, you're first up. Welcome. We're going to do, let's just check the Zoom so I can give you an estimate of what we're going to do. 2 people. Okay, so we'll do 3 minutes. Welcome.
Chris Mulroney, FTA President. As the district moves forward with final staffing decisions and budget reductions, accountability must remain at the center of this process. Staffing changes should be driven by current student needs and the most recent data available, not simply by budget targets. We are deeply concerned that the proposed reductions are concentrated entirely in student-facing positions that provide direct service and support. The elimination of ESL educators and other student support staff will directly affect students who rely on these services every day. These educators are essential in supporting multilingual learners and students with academic, behavioral, and social-emotional needs. Reducing these positions increases the likelihood that student needs will go unmet, place additional demands on remaining staff, and reduce individualized support for some of our most vulnerable learners. We urge the district to use the most recent assessment data to guide decisions regarding ESL staffing. These decisions should reflect current student needs and performance, not just historical staffing patterns. Recent staffing levels have allowed educators to move beyond basic compliance and provide meaningful instruction, intervention, collaboration, and family engagement. Proposed reductions risk returning the district to a compliance-based model rather than one focused on student success. We are also encouraged the district to review the current ESL instructional model with meaningful input from educators responsible for implementing it to evaluate its effectiveness and ensure that staffing decisions support both student outcomes and the district's long-term goals for multilingual learners. Additionally, new state requirements regarding seclusion and timeout take effect in September. These changes will require additional training, oversight, and staffing capacity to ensure compliance while maintaining safe learning environments for students and staff. This is not a time when fewer staff can realistically meet expanded responsibilities. As you evaluate the final staffing plan, we ask that you hold the administration accountable for demonstrating how proposed reductions align with student needs, preserve critical services, and meet legal and regulatory obligations. Our students, families, and staff deserve decisions that are thoughtful, data-informed, and sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go online first. Jessica Villatoro, if you could give us a sound check, and I'll start your clock for 3 minutes. Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. In light of the recent vote of no confidence in the highway principal, I am deeply concerned about decisions made by central office and Dr. Tremblay regarding staffing cuts and transfers. I urge the school committee to ask questions about the rationale behind these choices. Why are highly respected and well-supported VPs, such as Mr. Foster, being displaced while an administrator who has received a vote of no confidence in place? This makes no sense. Student-facing positions should be the last roles considered when cutting. Before eliminating roles that directly impact students, Central should thoroughly examine its own staffing structure, including potential redundancies and opportunities for highly paid administrators to absorb additional responsibilities. The school committee is relying heavily on recommendations from central office and principals, yet those individuals are often the farthest removed from the day-to-day realities of the classroom. Teachers are the professionals who know best and understand what is educationally feasible and students need. Given the recent vote of no confidence, it is especially important that the committee broader input rather than relying solely on administrative perspectives. Going forward, one possible solution would be for school committee members to serve as liaisons to specific schools, creating direct lines of communication with educators and staff. Ultimately, student needs must come first. Community trust is low, and this calls for greater transparency, accountability, and independent oversight. I hope that the school committee will demonstrate its commitment to students by carefully examining these decisions and holding Central.
Thank you. Up next, we'll go in person. Rebecca Lawrence. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. Rebecca Lawrence, District 1, parent of 2 children in FPS and teacher at Fuller Middle School for 9 years. I am here to paint a picture of the consequences of the additional proposed cuts to my school. I have 5 points. 1, already decimated. In the first 81 cuts, we had the highest percentage of staff reductions across the district, 13.3%. The Romans coined the term decimation when 1 in 10 of them were cut down. By this definition, our school staff was already decimated during this first round. We had the largest percentage of reduction in students, but we also have one of the highest percentages of high-need students at 76.8%. Please, no more cuts to Fuller Middle School. 2, lost TBE program. In the casualties of the first round was the TBE, Transitional Bilingual Education Program. This exemplary program was established so ESL students could learn the necessary grade-level content while building sufficient academic English proficiency. These students will now be taught their core subjects all in English before they've had time to reach an appropriate level of comprehension. If these additional cuts are made, we will not have the ESL staff needed to support these students in these classes. In our experience, when students cannot comprehend material in class and do not have enough support, it results in high levels of frustration, feelings of defeat, and unwanted behaviors. 3, belonging. Part of the district's strategic goals is to increase belonging in our schools. At Fuller, we have achieved this goal through the specialized adults who are able to connect with specific students, our ESL teachers, DEI coach, and restoration specialist. These connections are essential for the at-risk students and benefit the whole school by reducing unwanted behaviors. 4, progress will be lost. Fuller has made significant progress towards turnaround goals in the last 3 years. Each year, we've doubled our accountability rating and increased our students passing the Access ESL test. This is only because we've had staff who have been able to support student learning. Cut the staff, cut the progress. 5, staffing in central office. With the high quantity of educator positions being cut, I would like to suggest that staffing at central office be scrutinized again for potential reductions. In the first round of cuts, 10 positions were listed, with 4 being unfilled positions, 3 being suitable custodial staff, like a painter, HVAC technician, etc., leaving only 3 people from the central office staff list as being cut. Presuming a central office staff of about 112 people, this equates to a 2.7% reduction in staff. If schools were asked to reduce staff equivalent to the amount of students lost, should central office not be held to a similar standard, either by cutting percentage of students lost in the district or percentage of staff cut in the district? In summary, Fuller has already been cut a lot. We have lost the TBE program. With the cuts made, we put our progress in belonging, ESL, and turnaround in danger. We cannot sustain more cuts. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. All right, online phone number ending in 6252. Give us a quick sound check.
Yes. Madam Chairperson, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Welcome, yes. Thank you. I'm just calling to say hello and a little bit more. The planning department just initiated a study asking, is Framingham affordable? Well, it's not, and it's getting worse. Residents cannot afford and are not keeping up with cost of living increases. Do not say it's okay to raise taxes, even higher, and it's not okay. We need to at least get back to the standard bylaw 2.5 annual tax increase. More and more of our citizens are unable to keep up with all the day-to-day costs, in particular seniors and young families. The school department should not have to cut to the bone above and beyond the cuts, the 82 cuts already, and was done by your due diligence and careful consideration. The mayor and the CFO, I think, are with you there. Tell them right now they need to provide a lot more cuts on the city side. Put their focus on the city side. Their cuts to date are just a handful of employees. Make them cut more, challenge their numbers and logic, plus via full-time transparency, divulge all citywide funds and accounts and monies. All of this is far too important and not correctly dealt with. It should have been dealt with a year ago. To now go on hunches and prayers doesn't cut the mustard. I will be listening intently tonight. Miss Maskell is fighting. The rest of you must fight with her, and so many of you have. Forget the city council. They dropped the ball a long time ago. Fight for the right without question or pause to this glorious quest that you're on. When you walk through the storm, hold your heads up high, walk on with hope in your heart, and you will never be alone. Continue on and don't give up. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you. All right, next in person, we have Dan Tangleson. Welcome.
Good evening. Dan Tangleson, District 6. I attended the city council meeting yesterday, and the city council was very interested in long-term planning, and I think the perspective that I'm hearing from other people here and the one that I want to share tonight is really around long-term planning. When my wife and I moved here to Framingham 12 years ago, there was a lot of encouragement for us to seek other cities to move into. And the reason was because of the schools. I think we have a challenge here in Framingham and an opportunity to improve our schools, but I think it requires us to have a focus on long-term planning. Rebecca just talked about school tests improving. I think that's one example. Providing the extracurriculars like SAGE that we are planning to cut right now is another example where we become attractive as a community to people who are looking to move in here. Another thing that I heard Jesse Villatoro bring up is around the vote of no confidence. I did not know Kenji Foster before this school year. My children do attend Brophy, but before that, I was a Read to a Child adult volunteer, and I have been for the last 10 years. My slot this year happens to align with when Kenji happens to help people with lunchtime at Brophy. So as a person that did not know him, and as a person that would just come in and volunteer during lunchtime and quietly observe how he would help the kids, I want you guys to think about who you are letting go and how that affects the people rather than just the decisions behind that. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next on line, we have Meenakshi Verma Agrawal. Give us a sound check.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome, you
you
have
so
3
much.
minutes.
My name is Meenakshi Verma Agrawal, and I'm here representing Framingham Families for Racial Equity in Education. I'm a parent of 3 children in the school district. I live in District 2, and I'm here representing those who are deliberately left voiceless because of the decisions made here today. I'm really imploring the school committee to please, after this process, ask yourself, how did we get here? And please look closer at your own lack of accountability to the administration. To Rebecca Lawrence's point previously, the impact of these cuts bears repeating. I'm thinking specifically of the impact on children of color who are held and supported by educators of color. We can basically pick the vulnerable population, and they are all in the line to be cut. ESL, special education, and DEI, which is back on the list. From a community perspective, the administration has lost the confidence of our people. Staff of color are reaching out to us with experiences of their lack of faith in central administration to make decisions on their behalf and for the well-being of the district. Leaks out of FPS administration signal a serious lack of faith in leadership. Add to that messy equity practices like selective BIPOC stipends through policies that are not well understood by the administration and the leadership team, and has attracted all the wrong kinds of attention into this painful process. At the end of this budget season, which has been a very long fight, and many people have really given up because of the lack of motion, the lack of leadership, and the lack of accountability, I really want to ask the school committee members to individually think of why we are not holding Dr. Tremblay and his leadership team responsible. I'm asking you why your voices are silent and why you won't speak up for the people who voted you into these positions. As a member of the community, we all need to know. Thank you.
Next, in person, we have Jeff Epstein.
Okay, Jeff Epstein, 6 Stalker Lane. Glad to be back here. I kind of missed this room. It's really hard to understand this entire budget process because it was actually decided months ago by the City Council when they said 10 million and 3.5. And so they set the stage for everything that they're arriving at now. And so they decided without any discussion of the consequence of the financial decision to just do that. That was what was done. This was raised by one school committee member here. Where did that come from? It was plucked out of the air. Personally, I would pay 5% tax increase. But when I look at the budget reduction plan, I see bloodshed here. SAGE, ESL, health teachers. And I remember the City Council getting very upset about the classroom problems we had here. And all of that was reinforced, and we managed those classroom problems by adding staff. And so teachers are leaving in droves because of staff being a problem. But I'd like to not go on a lot, you know my positions, but I want to talk about SAGE because here there's a little story which, if you'll let me finish it, involves John Stefanini, who at the City Council the other day said how marvellous the school system here must be, and we really don't have to worry about anything because, gee whiz, 2 Framingham High School graduates just made co-valedictorian at Harvard. And my impression of that was, well, if they got to Harvard, then probably this reflects the state of education 10 years ago. So it isn't very much of a modern, current thing. But the remarkable thing is this, I publicised this, wrote an article, put videos up, and I got back an email, which if you'll give me time to read, I will, from a parent of one of those co-valedictorians. And her email read as follows. As one of the parents of Stefanini's daughter's classmate that was the co-valedictorian, quote unquote, my son graduated from FHS 13 years ago. Harvard actually doesn't have valedictorians. The 2 Framingham High School graduates shared the Sophia Freund Prize with 5 others for graduating summa cum laude and having the highest GPA. Had it not been for SAGE, we likely would have left Framingham. Starving the schools will have a terrible impact on the neediest students, and others who have a choice will just leave. So we gotta hold on to SAGE. I look at the SAGE cuts here and think that is a terrible mistake, because if we're gonna be anything, we've gotta support those kids and remember the stories such as John Stefanini told, but in the context which is accurate. And that is, we've got to fight. And I would say this, don't comply with the mayor's budget. Do whatever cuts you need, but don't comply with it.
Thank you. All right, online we have Ann Brzezinski. Can you give us a sound check and we'll start your clock?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, yeah.
Hi, my name is Ann Brzezinski. I'm a resident of District 4. I'm a parent of a 1st grader and a 4th grader in Framingham Public Schools. I'm also a mental health provider overseeing child and family clinical services for a local nonprofit. The opinions expressed tonight are mine alone and do not reflect views of my employer. I have been incredibly disappointed to hear that the mayor has not funded the previously approved school committee budget. Framingham schools do not have the resources they need to manage the wide-ranging needs of our students. As a parent and a local provider, I hear about challenges happening across the district multiple times each week. The previously cut 81 positions are going to have an impact on every school and every student in the district. It is going to be harder for school staff to meet the needs of all students and to manage the challenges that will inevitably come up. We cannot afford to cut an additional 31 positions from the school budget, really any more positions. I am incredibly disappointed to learn that Framingham's finances have not been managed in a way that supports our actual costs for years, particularly and most importantly, the cost of operating our schools. It is now clear that we could not afford to defer tax increases over the past several years. We need to increase taxes now to fund our schools without any further reductions. If we fail to do this and instead further cut the school budget, we will create additional challenges for many students, which will compound in the coming years. It will damage our schools in ways that will take years and even more money than we're talking about tonight to come back from. Families with students in SAGE may also choose to leave the district without the only resource devoted to students whose learning needs are above their grade level. We can do better. We have to do better. I am really hoping that the school committee can work with the city council to get to a different place than where we have been talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this concludes public comment until the end. We're going to take things a little bit out of order to accommodate a few individuals who have reached out, attending in person specifically for the Walsh-Dunning softball field complex improvements. So I'm going to move that up to our next spot on the agenda. So here with us tonight, welcome, we have Deborah and we have Mike Welch. You're welcome to join as well. The Community Preservation Coordinator, Heather O'Donnell, and Mike Welch are here to speak on this and answer any questions. The CPC recommended a grant for $327,500 for the design of a Walsh-Dunning softball field complex improvements, which the City Council recently approved. One of the conditions of the grant was that the project would be subject to the review and vote of the school committee. So the application was signed off by Dr. Tremblay and included in packets were support letters from principals of Walsh and Dunning, and the school committee needs to approve the project to meet the conditions. Without their approval, the grant agreement cannot be issued. So it's on our agenda for tonight, and the project itself will be managed by Parks and Rec, so they will be considered the grant recipient if approved by the school committee. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Heather O'Donnell. I am the Community Preservation Coordinator for the City of Framingham. Tonight I'm here to request the school committee's review and vote on the condition for the Walsh-Dunning softball field complex improvement project, which was recommended by the Community Preservation Committee and approved by the City Council for funding in fiscal year 2026. The Walsh-Dunning softball field complex project is a design project. CPA funds will cover the cost of a survey, geotechnical evaluation, a building schematic design, engineering and design, permitting, and final design documents. Once constructed, the project will make many upgrades to the softball facilities located between Walsh Middle School and Dunning Elementary School. Proposed improvements include a new full-size softball field, new fencing and netting, dugouts, lighting, batting cages, an amenities building with bathrooms, concessions and storage, and an ADA-compliant walkway. The Framingham CPC wants to ensure that the improvements paid for with CPA funds are preserved in the long term. Thus, the committee included the following condition on the project. If the project site is subject to change in use that reduces or eliminates the future recreation facilities planned under this grant within 50 years of the grant award, then an alternate equivalent site must be provided or the CPA funds must be repaid by the city. It is my understanding that if a new school were to be built on either the Walsh or Dunning site, athletic field restoration would be included in that project. The CPC wants to guarantee that that will occur. I ask for your affirmative vote on this request, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. And Mike Welch was the applicant on the project and is very familiar with it.
Adam, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was really excited to see this on the agenda. Mike, I don't remember when we had coffee, but maybe 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, one of my first questions was, does Framingham Youth Softball support this? So curious about that, and seeing you here smiling and nodding, I'm hopeful that everything is going well there. My line of thought, and I fully support this, is more just about process with kind of the school committee rights and having delegated authority to the Parks Department that's outside of our control. And then lights, and that was not meant to rhyme. But on school committee rights, what I mean by that is, are you aware that scoreboards, naming rights, advertising, that would have to require a future vote separate from tonight's vote in my mind. So if there is any of that, I'm just very interested in making sure we follow that process. Also, this being, city land, but managed by the school department, just curious about maybe this is for Mr. Lynch, kind of the partnership with the Parks Department and the school department and how we typically manage projects on school property. And in this case, we wouldn't be. So I'm wondering about that. I'll pause there, and then I'll ask my final question on lights in a moment. Thank you.
Yeah, all set. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so we have a great partnership with the Parks Department, and we fully support this project. It's going to benefit our kids, obviously, and all kids in Framingham. I have the utmost confidence that the parks will be able to maintain this property.
Excellent. Am I right? This is similar to the Barry Bograd Field in the same complex that was a Parks managed project, but still on school district land?
That's correct.
Okay, excellent. Feel good about that. And then thank you, Madam Chair. My final question is about lights. Can you talk about the strategy for lights for evening softball options here? And one of the reasons I'm asking is I see an opportunity in the future for joint procurement because the school committee priority list has had the Fuller lights and it got deferred. So in my mind, the Fuller turf field lights are next on the list. But at the same time, if there's an opportunity one day for lights on this field, maybe there's a way to have a joint funding request to fill some lighting gaps. Maybe we could save some money with joint procurement. I'm just curious on the lighting strategy for the Walsh fields.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee for your attention to this request. This is a project that's been in the making for many, many years. My daughter was a softball player in Framingham, and my sons were also baseball players in Framingham, and the big issue for me is the lack of equity. The inequitable facilities, the inequitable opportunities that exist for girls in relation to boys. So that's the driving force behind what we're doing. And to get to your question, Mr. Freudberg, the lighting issue is one that's going to take a lot of conversation. This is going to need to be vetted through the community, vetted through conversation, and reassuring those residents nearby, myself being one, as an abutter, that we are doing this thoughtfully and carefully. And thank you to Mr. Lynch for his perspective, because we've been working at this for probably close to 7 years. And a lot of that has been about conversation, about bringing people together with the school department, with former facilities director Matt Tordai. You see a letter from him. If you read through all 77 pages of the materials, you would see that he has a letter supporting this also. We've worked very closely with Park and Recreation, and I want to thank Allison Elliott and Jim Snyder and the folks on the Park and Rec Commission. They've been well involved. We are doing this slowly. This is going to take time if we do it right. And to Mr. Freudberg's question, I think there are opportunities for synergy with other projects in ways that are, in my opinion, specifically focused on equity and the ability of girls in Framingham to have the same opportunities that boys do. So we're playing the long game here. This is not something that is going to happen tomorrow. The monies have come about over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, and it's really all in design, and now going through this process will get us to the next stage. This is going to be a long-term project that we want to chip away at with many different people contributing to the overall opportunity for kids. So you have the opportunity tonight to move the ball down the field, if you will. But don't expect that you're going to see things changing immediately. But I love the opportunity for us to look at this in a collaborative way, because we all need to be at the table together under the guise of making sure we have better opportunities for kids. And tonight you have the opportunity to put your stamp on that, and we hope that you're going to do that. For all of the trouble that you're having right now, I don't envy the position you're in. I thank you for volunteering, and you can do something good tonight. Thanks.
That answers my questions. I really appreciate, Mike and Heather, your work on this and all the other people you thanked. And by the way, the school district Title IX equity audit of 2021 flagged softball lighting and other softball field inequities. And so thank you for helping us make some progress in partnership with everyone else.
Up next, Jen.
Thank you. I am so happy to see this because I too spent a lot of time on the softball field with Mike. I do have one question. Once this is complete, I know it's going to be a while before it's completed, but will that end up, and I think this is going to go to Lincoln, will that end up under our policy that before 5:30 it's school property, after 5:30 it's softball? Yeah, just said.
I think it would, but we wouldn't use the softball field during the day, as far as I know.
Okay, just want to make sure
Yeah.
that it's separate, or if there's rules, because I know we just had passed a policy of the 5:30.
Yep.
At least at the, of the fields and stuff like that. I would like to make the motion to accept this and to move this forward so we can open it up to more discussion.
Okay, motion on the floor to accept and approve the Walsh Dunning softball field complex improvement project. We'll have plenty of discussion after. Just can I get a second on that first?
I second.
Second by Rich. Okay, more discussion. Go ahead. You're next, Lorena.
I just wanted to say thank you for putting this forward. I think this is a wonderful proposal. I don't have girls, but I really like how you are highlighting the fact that there are inequities in our baseball complex, which is wonderful. I have boys, and I spend a lot of time there these days, and I'm more than happy to support this. So thank you for bringing it forward. This is definitely how I, as a taxpayer, like to see our money in action. So thank you.
All right, any further discussion? All right, motion on the floor to approve the Walsh Dunning softball field complex improvements projects. All those in favor, raise your hand. Do we have everybody? Willie, raise your hand. Okay, got it. All right, 900. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it. All right, we're going back to kind of bopping around a little bit here tonight. We're going back to announcements from the chair. So I do want to just use my time as announcements from the chair to recognize our Student Advisory Committee Chair, Deborah. Over the past year, Deborah has been a thoughtful contributor to our meetings, providing consistently meaningful reports and valuable student perspectives that have helped inform our work. She's done a tremendous job organizing and supporting our elementary school students. That was the first. That was great to have. And encouraging student participation and engagement throughout the district. As she prepares to graduate this week, I wanted to take a moment and just acknowledge her contributions and celebrate her accomplishments and thank her for her service. While we're confident that we have someone prepared to step into the next role next year, she's leaving us in good hands, but she'll certainly be missed. So I just wanted to take a moment. On behalf of the entire school committee, thank you for your dedication, your leadership, your commitment to our students and your school, our schools. We wish you the best of luck in all your future endeavors and have no doubt that you will continue to accomplish great things. We did, just to celebrate and all that she's contributed, we have a cake somewhere with freezer packs and a gift as a token of our appreciation. So Deborah, thank you so much for your service. And then with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Student Advisory Committee presentation for you to take it from here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having us tonight. Today, we're going to be sharing some key insights from our latest student feedback survey on student well-being and sleep at FHS. But before we dive into these findings, I would like to give a chance to the Student Advisory Council members to introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Ibrahim Lari. I'm in 10th grade.
I'm Jolene Zhang, and I'm in 10th grade.
All right, next slide. I want to briefly explain how the survey was conducted. Students completed the survey during an extended advisory period in April, and it was sent out through advisory teachers. The survey was translated into Spanish, Portuguese, and for the first time ever, Haitian Creole. The Portuguese survey was revised by Portuguese teacher Ms. Penjator. The Haitian Creole survey was revised by NHS volunteer Delina Sanon, and the Spanish survey was revised by student volunteer Genesis Rodriguez. In total, 796 students responded, which is about 38% of the student population. All questions were left optional so students could answer honestly and only share what they feel comfortable with sharing. Next slide, please. So some context to the survey is that at the beginning of the year, SAC had a conversation about different areas of the student experience that we wanted to explore and better understand. And student well-being came up as an important focus, especially because it connects so deeply to sleep, mental health, learning, and just overall how students feel at school. And after a school committee member also suggested this topic, we decided to move forward with it for our next survey. And our goal with the survey was to give the FHS administration student feedback on how students are doing and what challenges they might be facing and where more support may be needed. Next slide, please. In terms of participation, overall 796 students responded, which represents 38% of the FHS student body. Looking at the responses by grade level, freshmen had the highest participation rate with about 56% of the class responding. Sophomores followed with about 44%, juniors with about 32%, and seniors had the lowest response rate with about 19%. One reason for the lower senior participation may be that the survey was sent out during an extended advisory, which seniors tend to not attend, so that may be one of the reasons for the lower participation rate for seniors. Next slide, please, and I'll pass it to Jolene.
Thank you, Deborah. So one of the questions we asked on the survey was which of the categories best describes the level of courses the students are taking. So the most common course level was reported ACP/honors classes, especially among the students who completed the English survey. This suggests that many students are taking fairly challenging classes that may require additional study and homework outside of school. While the courses alone does not determine sleep habits, increased academic demands can reduce the amount of students that have time available for sleep. This may explain some of the sleep patterns we see later in the survey. So transitioning to the next slide, since course rigor can increase academic demands, the next question is about how students actually spend completing homework each day and how it might affect sleep. The most common responses overall was spending about 1 to 2 hours on homework each day. However, responses varied by survey languages, with Portuguese-speaking students more commonly reporting less than 1 hour, and Haitian Creole speaking students more commonly reporting 2 to 3 hours. Spending several hours on homework each evening can push bedtime later, especially when combined with extracurriculars or family responsibilities. This may contribute to students getting fewer hours of sleep than recommended. And I'm going to hand it to Ibrahim.
Thank you, Jolene. So we asked students what other activities you are involved with outside of school. And sports and family responsibilities seem to be the most common extracurricular activities, with over a third of the survey population reporting that they do those, showing how our students are extremely committed to other activities outside of school. This is followed by jobs and after-school clubs. Internships seem to be the least common extracurricular, making sense as they are not super common. And one thing I want to note is that you might see at the bottom where it says Haitian Creole, 0% of students said that they work as a part-time job outside of school. I don't want you all to get super worried over that because we only got 7 responses from the Haitian Creole survey, so it's not representative of the whole Haitian Creole population at FHS. Next slide. So we then asked, on average, how many hours do you spend on these extracurriculars? And this graph, almost normally distributed, shows that most students spend about 2 to 3 hours outside of school on these activities. However, there's also a great number of students that spend more than this time, even up to 5 hours, showing how students are heavily involved outside of school. Next. So I'll give it to Deborah.
We then asked, on average, how many hours of sleep do you get on a school day? And the most common response overall was 6 to 7 hours of sleep, which is below the recommended 8 to 10 hours of sleep teens should get each day. This also was most common in the English, Portuguese, and Spanish surveys, with about 30% of the students who answered that question choosing that option. As for the Haitian Creole survey, the most common response was less than 3 hours of sleep, with 50% of students who answered that version of the survey choosing that option. But like Ibrahim said, it's also very important to note that only 7 students responded to the Haitian Creole survey, so that number should not be generalized to the entire population of Haitian Creole students at FHS. Next slide, please. We also created a correlational graph to more closely explore the potential relationship between students' reported course levels and the average amount of sleep that they may be getting. And as expected, we found a negative correlation. So students taking mostly higher course level classes tended to report a lower average amount of sleep each day. And this is obviously connected to the amount of workload and the differences in workload for each one of the course levels. It is also very important to note that most students who took the survey in English had a higher percentage of students enrolled in upper level classes, such as ACP/honor classes, or mostly honors and AP classes. And in contrast, students who took the survey in a different language, like Portuguese, Spanish, or Haitian Creole, more commonly reported taking mostly CP/ACP classes, so lower level classes. And this also connected to the sleep data, since students who took the survey in English generally reported getting less sleep on average than students who took the survey in other languages. Next slide, please. We then asked students on average around what time do you wake up on a school day? And overall, over half of the students reported waking up at around 5 to 6 a.m. And when we break it down by language, 55.8% of the students who responded to the survey in English reported waking up at around that time, but students who took the survey in other languages reported waking up even earlier. In the Portuguese survey, around 52.5% of the students reported waking up at around 4 to 5 a.m., and this trend also appeared for the majority of the Spanish and Haitian Creole respondents, also reporting that they wake up at around the same time. Next slide, please. And I'll pass it to Jolene again.
The next question we asked on the survey was between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. on a typical school night, how do you usually spend your time? The most common responses for students completing in the English, Portuguese, and Spanish surveys was using their phones or social media for recreation during the evening hours. In contrast, most Haitian Creole respondents reporting sleeping during this time period. Many students are spending a significant portion of their evening on screens. This may affect both how quickly they fall asleep and the quality of their sleep. Screen use before bed has been linked to later bedtimes and reduced sleep duration. When the students consistently get less sleep, it can affect their mental health and overall being. This leads to our next question about the mental health support at FHS. Next slide. The responses to these questions were fairly mixed. So many of the students reported that they were either unaware of the available mental health resources or had never used them. Others felt that the resources were helpful and accessible. Since stress and mental health challenges can have a major impact on sleep quality, these findings suggest that increasing awareness for available support could help students better manage factors that may interfere with their sleep. Next slide, and I'm going to pass it back to Ibrahim.
Thank you, Jolene. So we asked students, if you've experienced stress or mental health challenges, how effective has the school been in helping you? And a large amount of students said that they did not seek support from the school, which suggests possibly that students may not know how to seek support, as Jolene said in the last slide. Many students who have attempted to seek help do not find it fully helpful, as nearly a third said that it was either somewhat or not effective, showing that there's definitely room for improvement. Only about 1/3 of students in our survey reported having no issues, showing that mental health challenges are a prevalent issue in FHS. Next slide. So this is a relationship between student sleep and perceived school support for mental health. And if you take a look at this graph, it shows that students who sleep less hours are significantly not seeking support from the school, but still reporting mental health issues, whereas there seems to be more people who have not experienced stress/mental health challenges when they have more sleep. This is seen with the orange line starting smaller, but eventually becoming the most common answer, and the green line starting the largest and eventually becoming smaller proportionally. This suggests a correlation between low sleep and mental health. Next slide. So we asked students, which of the following school-based mental health resources have you used? And counselors seem to be the most popular so far, followed by trusted teachers. Overall, more than half of the students said that they did not use any mental health resources, though. Peer support and clubs seem to be the least common, and the school psychologist is slightly used. Next slide. I'll give it back to Jolene.
Thank you, Ibrahim. When students were asked about how they could improve their sleep, the most common themes appeared. Many students suggest later school start times, less homework, more time to complete assignments, and change to transportation schedules. These respondents indicate that students believe many of their sleep challenges are connected to school-related responsibility and time constraints. Their suggestions provide insights into potential change that could support healthier sleep habits. These responses help summarize the major trends we've found throughout the survey. Next slide. Hand it back to Ibrahim.
Thank you, Jolene. So we asked students about if you could change one thing about the school experience to improve your mental health, what would it be? And people noted that mental health resources weren't as accessible as they wanted. As we discussed in previous slides, many people are not using mental health resources. And another big thing people wrote is that they would like more opportunities for breaks and free time within school, suggesting that they might be getting burnt out from their classes as their only break throughout the day is the 30-minute lunch period. Students also noted down that homework was a key issue that could be lowered to improve their mental health. Next slide. And I'll give it back to Jolene.
Thank you. So to summarize the slides, the most common response overall was around 6 to 7 hours of sleep, which is lower than the recommended 8 to 10 hours of sleep for teenagers. Many students also reported early wake-up times, significant homework commitments, extracurricular activities, jobs, and family responsibilities. In addition, phone usage and social media were common event activities for many students. Taken together, these results suggest that the combination of academic demands, personal responsibilities, and evening habits could be contributing to reduced sleep among students. And then, next slide, and then I'll hand it back to Deborah to wrap it up.
So overall, the survey results just show how well-being and sleep is closely connected with students' daily experiences of FHS. So we saw that factors like workload, outside responsibilities, and early wake-up times, and also access to support all affected student sleep and overall well-being. One major takeaway from that was that many students suggested a later start time, and I know this has been discussed before. I know the fact that it came up so repeatedly, and especially with the recent developments around additional busing, makes it a potential important and interesting conversation to continue having. The results also show that while FHS does not have, that FHS does have mental health resources available, many students may not know of them, that they exist, or may feel not so comfortable with using them. And because of that, another important takeaway is that more can be done to make sure that these students are aware of these resources, and more importantly, understand how to use them and feel supported when they seek help. Next slide. So before we end, I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of you. Since this is my last school committee meeting with the SAC Council, I wanted to thank the members for all the hard work you've put into SAC this year. I also wanted to thank Mr. Pave and Madam Henley, who put so much work and also supported SAC greatly this year. Thank you for all you do. I think that without your help and your support, we wouldn't be able to get anything done this year, so thank you for that. I also wanted to thank the school committee for all the support and enthusiasm you've shown SAC and also Student Voice. I've been with SAC for about 3 years, and that support has not changed, so thank you. I am also truly grateful to have had the opportunity to sit in so many insightful and meaningful conversations and discussions. I've learned so much from each one of you, and these are lessons that I'll carry with me beyond high school. So thank you, and with that, we would like to open it up for questions.
Kyle, go ahead.
So I saw one of the responses to what could be done to improve was around bicycles, and I'm actually curious. I don't know this about the high school. Do students ride bikes to school still? Is that a thing?
I'm not sure. From my experiences, I do know a couple of students that do, but they do live a little closer to that school, so that might be one of the reasons. We also do have some bike spots, and I've seen some bicycles, so maybe, but I'm not sure. Do any of you guys know or to add to it?
I do have a lot of friends who use their bicycles to schools. They do live near at FHS, so it's not a long distance. But I think bicycles are a good transportation usage for students too. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I think bicycles are a pretty good idea, especially because students who might live slightly closer to the school, but they can't really walk there, maybe they can use a bicycle to get there if they don't have a bus. So I think bikes might be a good idea.
Thanks, and I'd be curious to know if those students who do ride bikes, if maybe there could be a follow-up, because I'm actually really curious about this question, maybe like the oddball and the, oh yeah, sure.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Mr. Shepherd, for raising the question. So we do have a number of students across all of our schools, actually elementary, middle, and high school, who take bikes to school. I'd like, personally to have a bit more helmet safety. I don't see a lot of our students wearing helmets on their bicycles. So I do want to put a plug in for that, and we can provide those at no cost. Just email me. We work with the Framingham Police Department, who provides those. But also we've worked with Lincoln Lynch, Yemiya Zhao, to provide bicycles for students who don't have the means to provide them. And we've given hundreds of bikes to our students. In fact, some of them just the other day, they thanked me for having that. So we do have a mechanism in place. I think we've used up all of our stock. I think everything we have has been given out. We've had grants in the past. We've worked with Greater Framingham Community Church, as well as, what was the bike company? We had a local bike, I can't think of the company. I can't remember. And no, it'll come to me. I'm sorry, I drew a blank on the question. But we do offer that to our students. Although we don't have anything currently in our supply, we have continued to provide that to students in need.
And I would assume we work closely with the city to make sure that the routes to schools are safe by bicycle, because that's another concern you'd have in the morning where kids are going to school and it's also rush hour.
I spoke at the meeting.
Oh, nice. The cops.
Yeah.
Hot mics here.
Basically just saying that, like emphasizing all the things that we've been talking about.
Yeah, that's good.
Can you guys mute if you're on as a panelist, please mute your mic.
Like part of this is like up to.
I want to. I don't want to touch the translation.
Can I make a suggestion though regarding bikes?
Absolutely.
Yes, we'd love to hear it.
So I have a lot of friends who ride bikes to school, but it is like a safety hazard whenever it's like the winter time and it's like the icy sidewalks. So they usually don't ride their bikes during the winter time. I do want to add a suggestion that maybe some people who ride bikes to school, if they can get provided with buses, because majority of them do not have bus rides to school, and that's why they have to rely on a bike. So I don't know, that's a suggestion.
Thank you so much. Are there any more? Go ahead, Brent.
Thank you so much. This presentation's so great. I had the opportunity to attend the Civics Fair earlier this week at FHS, and there were a number of presentations that touched on similar issues. I know there were at least two advocating for a later school start time, one that advocated for every other half days to provide sort of a break, and another that recommended aligning homework. So I think this study is really timely, and I hope something that you would consider doing year over year, both so that we can track how sleep is changing with the changes we make, but also to continue to solicit ideas for changes. I know I have a constituent who has had many conversations with me about healthy start times, especially for our high school, and I would love, as we move forward, especially now that we are in greater control of our busing situation, and potentially with a new elementary school, ideally in the south side, still to be determined, that will relieve some pressures on busing, that we could explore that. But again, thank you so much for this presentation. It was great.
Anyone else? Well, thank you so much for your presentation. And Deborah, we do, with all of our hearts, wish you the best of luck. And please let us know how everything's going beyond high school. Can't wait to hear about it. Congratulations.
And you're always welcome to come back and visit.
Yes. Open invitation. All right, we're going to move on to, I'm going to turn it over to Rich on this one. He's going to take over the topic of the invitation to join the mayor, city council, and superintendent for a City Pride Month proclamation for June 2026.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair.
And yes, just to give you a context on this, when the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Subcommittee met a couple of weeks ago, actually like 3 weeks ago, a couple of our members brought up the idea and the need to have a proclamation for, Pride Month. And in the past, the city has, taken the lead in doing something like this, and it has come to a school committee. We've signed it. I don't think we did it last year, so we wanted to make sure that something got done this year. We reached out to the mayor's office, and we found out that the mayor had initiated this. So we, again, this year have a proclamation for Pride Month, and we're very excited about this. And all of us get to sign it tonight. So what I'll do is I can go ahead and read it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so here's a proclamation from the City of Framingham, Pride Month. Whereas the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and asexual LGBTQAI+ communities significantly contribute to the rich culture and atmosphere of the City of Framingham, and whereas Framingham champions diversity in all its forms, encompassing gender, race, age, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious beliefs, and ability. And whereas the month of June is recognized as the National Pride Month, commemorating the history and achievements of the LGBTQI+ community and making the anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising that took place in June 1969, which is acknowledged as the beginning of the LGBTQI+ rights movement. And whereas Framingham takes pride in being home to several remarkable LGBTQI+ support organizations, including Out Metro West, which has spent over a decade providing positive role models, challenging systemic oppression, and creating supportive environments that respect, embrace, and celebrate LGBTQ+ youth, as well as Framingham Glass, which fosters a supportive community for LGBTQ+ youth of color and their allies through community spaces, groups, and services. Whereas Framingham reaffirms its dedication to protecting and serving everyone who lives, works, or visits the city without discrimination, alongside its commitment to the dignity, equality, and constitutional and civil rights of all individuals. Now, therefore, be it be proclaimed that we, Mayor Charlie Sisiski, Framingham Superintendent of Schools Robert Tremblay, the Framingham City Council, and the Framingham School Committee hereby declare June 2026 as Pride Month in the City of Framingham. We invite the members of the Framingham community to respect, honor, and acknowledge the enduring efforts and ongoing contributions of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and asexual plus individuals within our community. We encourage all residents to recognize and participate meaningfully in the observance of Pride Month in Framingham. All right, so there we have a proclamation. So thank you all.
Well, we have to vote on it. So is there a
Oh, that's
motion?
right.
Is there a
Sorry,
motion to approve joining the mayor, city council, and superintendent for a City Pride Month proclamation for June 2026? Moved by Mr. Labarge.
Second.
Seconded by Brent. All right. Any discussion? Thank you so much for your work on this one, by the way. Any discussion, questions, comments? Okay, we'll go, all those in favor, raise your hand. All right, opposed, 9-0-0. Is it a bad idea for me to pass it around while we're doing the goals, or do we want to put it on the side? All right, so before you leave today, since everyone is also in person, if you could sign right here, and Dr. Tremblay, there's a spot for your signature on this part, so I guess I'll hold off on passing it. Okay, turn it over to you, Dr. Tremblay, for superintendent's update.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'll be brief this evening. I just want to orient the school committee to the goals document. So this is the year-end report. I'm not going to read through all the 13 pages in the document for you. I just want to highlight, though, what the goals were and then give you the information, hopefully, that you need in completing my evaluation so we can talk about that. But the very first one is the community school pilot. I'll read the goal as it's stated here, just as a context. By June 2026, I will partner with the Framingham Teachers Association to successfully implement a community school pilot program in the Framingham Public Schools, ensuring a fully functioning site-based leadership team, community partnership network, and a comprehensive needs assessment and action plan through the partnership grant provided grant funding provided by the Massachusetts Teachers Association, the National Education Association, and any additional federal, state, or local allocations aimed at supporting the strategic goal. So as the committee heard from the McCarthy presentation, as a community school initiative, the vision is to start there, and with the gracious support of the MTA and the NEA, I think everyone here was impressed by what they saw, certainly being part of that team. Ms. Tovar, I know you had a number of questions about my role in there, so hopefully this document with the evidence also speaks to participation in a number of trainings and events, in addition to meetings, site visits, and then supporting this not only in the grant application, meeting with Lincoln Lynch and with Drew from the MTA, but also future budgets that you'll expect to see as we look to sustain this community school initiative beyond the grant years, and also to grow it across the district to other schools. So that's the spirit of this. This was the initial phase of that. So I wanted to give the context of the goal. Again, the committee heard the presentation at the previous meeting, so I won't belabor that point, but happy to answer any questions you might have now, but also in the time between now and your completion date of the goals part of my evaluation. Feel free to reach out at any point, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have along the way. You may also reach out, if you feel so inclined, to the McCarthy School community, the family support coordinator there, or to the FTA president, or anybody who's involved, to hear from others who might be able to speak to my contributions relative to this goal. So if there are any questions there, I'll just pause for a moment before I move on to the second. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move on to the professional practice goal. This is understanding artificial intelligence in education. I'll just read the goal, and again, I'll give some additional context. By June 2026, I will learn about the applications and potential of artificial intelligence in pre-K through 12 education to improve student outcomes and enhance district operations. I'll attend professional development on AI in education and connect with superintendents in Massachusetts and beyond who use AI in their daily work, and share those best practices with district and school leaders and staff in Framingham. So you'll see the specific action steps in here, everything from texts that I've read, conferences that I've attended, meetings that I've had. Just so you're aware, I also, with Deborah, as she can attest, with student, it wasn't the advisory council, but the student groups that you had at the high school, we had some discourse, as you know, around AI. As a district, we've adopted Notebook LM. I'm not sure how many of you are in the AI space and as it relates to education. Of course, we all know about ChatGPT and Gemini and things of that nature. Notebook LM is something we've rolled out in the district that, at least to the staff level at this point, that allows us to have some control as opposed to going out to the internet. It allows us to control the sources using Notebook LM. For our students. So, for example, we've used this, I was working with Lincoln and with Angela at Transportation to take our bus training guide, for example, take the document, put it into Notebook LM, and then Notebook LM will create, as I have as a sample in this document for you, it will show you all the things you may have experienced, visualizations, videos, podcasts that are all generated from the content that you provide. It's really important that we think about the generation of these kinds of additional supports to the text, right? That it's not generative that we're asking AI to create it for us, but we are providing the content, the original content that is then used in this way. We're also at the same time having conversations at the high school, at the middle school, elementary school level around the roles of AI. What are the fears? There's certainly a fear of AI in education somehow feels like we're cheating the system. But in some ways, if we use it correctly, it can be a thought partner, a brainstorming partner, as some of our teachers have been able to sort of harness, where they have limitations. You can use AI, but in this context, you can use it as an editing partner, as if you were having a friend read your paper. So there is the distinction between the generative part of AI and what we can actually use. Similarly, as we think about systems and operations and how it can save staff time. For example, as we consider contracts, you can, as you well know, but in case the public may be interested in hearing, we could upload into this Notebook LM and do a crosswalk analysis of contracts to find where there's gaps in our language or inconsistencies. So I expect as we consider negotiations moving forward, we can begin to leverage this tool. Finally, on this, and again, I won't detail everything that's in the document that you can review with the links, but I'm really excited about working with my team and with Ann in particular, Ann Ludus in particular. We have a Student Council Summit coming up on June 10th that I believe Deborah is attending, as well as our previous Student Advisory Council representative. I'm sorry, Mr. Rubin? Oh, he'll be joining us as well. And we have we'll have many, you're invited also. I think you've received the invitations to come out and see that. Hopefully we'll have representation from the city as well. And we will have students working a problem of practice across our elementary student councils, to work out a model of addressing AI, addressing cell phones, and all the technology pieces of this. And specifically, this will be around cell phone technology in schools, something we'll also be delving into. But where technology fits. Reading The Anxious Generation has been quite a book. I don't know if you've read this, but it's helping me really rethink my thoughts on where technology fits. And again, so having Deborah there, having Jordan Cohen, who'll come back, who's back from college, to help facilitate this elementary student council, which was part of his work with the Student Advisory Council previously, as you know, will be really exciting. So there's more to come on this. The final piece of this is I've been working with Riyadh Shah from the Chamber of Commerce to come up with a community-wide event where we can actually engage the citizenry of Framingham, business partners, students, grandparents, educators together in this space around how does AI look, what does readiness, career readiness look like for students who need to have an understanding and application and use of AI without us being afraid of it. And at the same time, looking at some policy for the district as well that allows us to have some guidelines on how to use it. Right now, that lives in our student handbooks, mostly around intellectual property or using, making sure we're not, students aren't taking information and using it inappropriately, that's not credited to the proper sources, and so forth. But we need to move beyond that. So it's been an interesting study this year in AI in all those various applications that I mentioned, but also hearing student voice as well as those who are in the practice, using it in roles like mine. So I'll pause there in case there are any questions there. There's a lot of detail, again, in the document. If you have any trouble accessing any of the live links, or if there's any questions at all, I'm happy to answer those tonight or between now and the time you prepare the evaluation. So I'll pause on that. Oh, I guess.
Questions? Go ahead, Kyle.
Thank you. So I appreciate this presentation on use of AI, and what I especially appreciate is that the policy as it stands is that real people produce the original source. AI is only used for synopsis, and because when you get into the machine doing the thinking, that starts to, I think, become more problematic. As far as use of Gemini and Notebook LM is, I assume that's a subscription per user per year and not a token model?
Right, so we're part of Google Classroom, so those are extensions of that.
Okay.
With the privacy concerns addressed.
And is there a way, I mean, I'm not sure how you would monitor this with teachers, but is there a way to measure time savings for the teacher against the cost of the product? Or is it just too hard to measure teacher time in increments?
I mean, maybe it's something we can look at. I mean, we're not there in terms of that. I think there's I know that there's inconsistent use of it. I think it's generational of us having an understanding. I think when I first put this goal on paper, I reminded myself that it felt like when the internet first came out and you've got mail and the idea of what is email. And I remember that moment feeling like the same way. So I think people are in that fear zone still. And to the extent, but in talking with a number of students, many teachers are sort of letting out the reins on that. But I agree with you. We can certainly look at the efficiencies or the time and the sort of return on investment side of that. But I really do think we need to create the bumpers. And by having that, and that's why I particularly like the Notebook LM, and I want to give a shout out to Ann Mariano, our Director of Educational Technology, who provided a lot of the orientation and training to our staff around that. So more to come on this. Of course, this is something, and the policy side of this is a challenge, right, because AI continues to evolve like literally day by day. So we'll have to really put some thought into it. I know that Ms. Moshe put that forward, shared some resources as well from MASC, and that's a policy that we'll certainly be taking up in the future with Policy Subcommittee as well, and we can incorporate that return on investment analysis to the extent we're able to.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to quickly comment on AI. By the way, thank you again for coming to the focus groups. We were able to have some very meaningful conversations. I just wanted to say that the best way to see how AI is impacting students is to continue having the conversations. And that's something I want SAC to continue doing, continue having the focus groups. And I would love to continue seeing your participation in them, because AI is constantly changing, like every technology. So how students are being impacted by AI and responding to AI right now may not look the same next year or the year after that. So I just think those conversations are still very important to continue having. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. You can count on that. I look forward to spending some time. Actually, I'll allude to that in a moment about my goals of sort of looking forward into next year, and about how I can continue to have student voice. But thank you for raising that. Absolutely. In fact, as we think about the cell phone policy, as I mentioned before, we want to continue those student discussions as well, because that's going to impact and to give voice. So many of our policies with this school committee have been informed by student voice. And I'm not sure how many school committees do that. And they know we have students that are represented, but are they actually informing policy? So I'm grateful that this board regularly includes student voice in developing those policies. So thank you, Deborah, for that. And I'll move on to the student learning goal. This is student performance improvement, addressing chronic absenteeism. The goal here is I will lead the district-wide initiative to reduce chronic absenteeism by identifying root causes and implementing targeted interventions in schools with the highest rates. Through this focused effort, I'll decrease the district's overall chronic absenteeism rate by 10% compared to the 24-25 school year. With the support of district and school leadership and their respective teams, we'll leverage the tools available to us in Parent Square to reduce chronic absenteeism, which is essential to improving student achievement, engagement, and graduation rates. So again, here you'll see lots of examples of how I've gone about addressing chronic absenteeism. I also want to give a shout out to Amy Kane in my office, who's really led the way in the Parent Square Attendance Plus module, which has allowed our principals, and we have data that you'll see linked here, so I would encourage you to follow these links. You'll be able to see the dashboard in Parent Square that shows the actual engagement with families. And what we're finding, and not surprisingly, is families really appreciate hearing from their child's teacher, more so than the principal, certainly more so than the central office, right? So that relationship at the school level, so when Bobby is absent from school that day, there's a difference between the district sending out an automated message or a teacher saying, we really miss Bobby in class today. And so that deepening connection, as a result of those efforts, my effort to lay it out for the staff and to really investigate those options, but really the staff effort in making that outreach and the principals making that outreach is really what's making this move the needle. And so I am pleased to report that the district has made significant progress toward this goal of reducing chronic absenteeism. As of May 12th, when we were preparing this report, the estimated year-to-date chronic absenteeism rate for the Framingham Public Schools is 25%, which means in this case we've, let's see, pardon me, I'm looking at this small font. So for context, our official baseline for the 24-25 years determined by the Department of Elementary Secondary Education was 30.5%. So while the current figures remain preliminary right now until the end of the school year, a drop from 30.5% to 25% for our chronic absenteeism represents an 18% relative decline in our chronic absenteeism rate year over year. So that's nearly double of what the goal was on this one. So I'm really pleased about that. Again, it's a shared in all of these, like the community schools, all the work we do. Well, I set the stage for that. It's bringing people together. It's committing resources to that work. It's monitoring that. It's having conversations, providing support as much as we can, and just being part of the team on that. So really pleased about that, to provide that update. Again, there's more detail, examples of communications, and of course the parent dashboard where you can see the actual real data in those links. Ms. Moshe.
So I love the outreach and the fact that teachers are using it, but I don't think they're using it at the high school level to reach out to parents that way. Maybe they're reaching out to the kids. I'm not sure on that, but perhaps if you had that same model that is working at the elementary and middle school level, at the high school, that perhaps that we can continue that progress to decline the number of the.
Sure. Yeah, and we can certainly dig into that to see where and I think it's different by teacher, by school, of course, but the overall result is a positive one. We also are, mindful that hopefully with our full roster of bus drivers, more buses, that will contribute to kids getting to school on time. I also recognize that it's very early for many of our students. I mean, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, after 3 hours of sleep, it's no surprise that people are struggling to get to school. And that's a separate conversation and something that we'll have to decide whether we want to investigate again, as we have in the past. But yes, the point is taken, and certainly I can look into that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bob, can you repeat those numbers again, please?
Sure.
I think what was the baseline?
So the baseline, all right, so, I'm sorry? Yeah, because our mathematician will explain the percentage ratio changes, because, we'll go ahead and take it.
The drop in the percentage drop, right, from 30.5 to 25 is 5.5 percentage points. But when you do a percent change formula, what you do is you look at the difference and divide by the first number. It's something I used to teach in math. So the percent change is the difference divided by the original number. So 5.5 divided by 30.5.
So the goal was a 10% year
Right,
over year.
10%.
And
Okay.
in this case, as it is now, and again, it'll change relative to the total number of days of attendance, right, 180 days. But as of May 12th, shows that was from 30.5% to 25%, represents an 18% relative decline in our chronic absenteeism rate. The goal was 10% decline year over year.
All right, thank you.
Sure. And not to put you on the spot, but when I saw the results of this goal, and I was talking with some colleagues who were recently recognized by the state on their absenteeism, chronic absenteeism, they were given a letter of sort of a commendation. I was wondering where my letter was. And so I think there was a threshold, though, that they had to increase by a certain, do you remember what that was?
I don't know that we got to the bottom of what that threshold was, but that particular case had a more substantial.
Yeah. So we are continuing to address this, and I think to Ms. Moshe's point, the more we can continue to use Parent Square, which is our two-way engagement tool, and at all levels, and at all, with our families, which allows us to engage in any language the family chooses. So it's really a great tool for us, and we'll hopefully see that continue to improve. Okay, I'll stop there unless there's any other questions.
Kyle, do you have a question?
I'm sorry. Other questions? So again, a lot of information. I just did a high-level overview for you tonight. It's all included in the packet. But again, look at the links. If there are questions on that, you'd like to see and dig into some more of that specific data, I would encourage you to do so. I make myself available, of course, for any questions. Relative to this also, in thinking that you have a few days to put together your individual evaluations, I just want to make a couple of comments here. One is there are a lot of different aspects to the state's tool that we've all agreed to use. And so I provided an evidence document, a tracking document, which is something I hadn't done before, that I was hoping that it might be helpful, especially for new members, because it's really difficult to understand what happens in day-to-day if we're not seeing that sort of behind the scenes. So I just wanted to acknowledge that there's an additional document that was shared in the packet, which I won't go over this evening, but it's called the Superintendent's Performance Rating for each of the standards. And you'll see that I've broken down each of the 4 standards and then provided evidence relative to each of those indicators. Again, I know it's a little bit of labor on your part, but rather than give you a 100-page document, I thought it would just be helpful in case there's a question. You may well know from your own lens of that, but if it's helpful to use those evidence details in preparing the evaluation. And also, I want to just comment on previous speakers who, and I don't normally do that, but previous speakers who've shared perceptions, opinions. Of course, everyone's entitled to those. I would encourage you to speak to them. They've been identified. Talk with them. If there's areas that you find of transparency, accountability that you feel need to be addressed, I'm all ears to hear that. We all want the best for this district, and if there's things that I can be doing better, certainly I want to do that. I want to be the best that I can be for the city of Framingham and for our kids and families, and if there's areas that are for improvement. So normally I would prepare more detailed goals. I have a few that I'll just talk through very quickly for next year anticipated. And I'll be very interested to see the committee's feedback, because I want to make sure as I form goals for the coming school year that I build on the feedback that you are hearing, that you are feeling, the areas where you feel improvement is needed by me as sort of the quarterback of this team. So I want to give an option for you to do that. And again, I would encourage previous speakers who've spoken to reach back to the committee with specifics so that I can actually identify what those actual goals are. If there's things around transparency that are not existent, I'd like to know more about how, why, where, and then make those improvements, and I'm committed to that. But apart from that, I just wanted to give a couple of, really three anticipated goals for your consideration that I'm working on refining, but just to give some context, the first of which is connections to the class of 2030. So members who've been around here for a while, particularly Mr. Freudberg, who was with me from the very beginning, knows that when I interviewed in Framingham, I committed to the class of 2030. I'm grateful to be here until 2030. Some may feel otherwise, but I'm grateful for that, to be along that journey. And I've really invested in that class. And for those who may not be aware, I have been reading to the class of 2030 since they were in kindergarten. They'll now be freshmen next year. And I've read to them every year. I've read a book to that class to stay connected. So this is the first goal that I'm really pleased to present. It's really coming upon this last four-year stretch for me. But as I prepare to close up my final years as superintendent of Framingham Public Schools, in an effort to fully embrace belonging, it's my personal goal, beginning in the 26-27 school year, to immerse myself more deeply and meaningfully in the life of students through their next 4 years of high school. So I've already begun those conversations with the high school administration to find ways where I can be meaningfully involved. So maybe it's that parent outreach side, maybe it's being an advisory capacity, student assemblies beyond just the reading to the kids. It's something I really feel strongly about, and I'm excited to make that connection. So more to come on that specific goal in terms of it being defined as a SMART goal, but I wanted to at least offer that for the committee's consideration before it's finalized as a goal for the coming school year for your approval. A second goal would be a pre-K-5 early education center, our school building project. There's a lot going on there with considerations, as you know, from those of you who are on the school building committee or who watch those meetings, everything from the demographics part of that to the rezoning to transportation considerations and the project itself. So I've identified that as a professional practice goal as well. And then an instructional goal. This is one I'm really excited about. I've provided some previous communications. I think this is a bridge building goal with the greater Framingham community. And this is a district priorities dashboard. This is something I've gotten feedback on from the SIFOC group, which has representation from the school committee, as you know, but also from the city council, from the mayor's office. And the idea here is to have a shared understanding, focus, and priority page for every one of the things that matter to our community and education. I think a lot of that's lacking. We have a strategic plan that's well established for the district, some of which has had to be necessarily abandoned because of funding. But to get city council and the mayor and the citizenry of this community to say, yeah, we all care about our graduation rate. It's important to all of us, and it's worth investing in to make sure that we can really care for our students to get to the finish line, right? What are those priorities? So I've taken a lot of community input on this, largely through the SIFOC group, but also with my own team. And then in the next meeting, I'll be sharing with the committee for your feedback, this sort of dashboard concept. I'm applying this gauge model, like you'd see the dashboard of your car, like there's your gas tank or your water heater, whatever it is, empty or full in your gas tank. You'd want to see the needles going to green. Just keep it simple for people in the community to really understand and get behind. And if we can all say that we're all behind early education expansion for pre-K, where are we with that? How does that work relative to the numbers? Where is the needle? And when we see needles that are in the red or in the yellow, we know that's an area of community focus. It's important to everybody, all of you, to us, and hopefully to our community. So when these budget conversations, which are going to get harder, likely, not just this year, but beyond, that we can always be really clear as a community on what our priorities are educationally. So I think Mr. Epstein, who's in the audience as well, I had some discussions initially with him early back from his school committee days, but even more recently about getting some feedback on this and what matters. So I look forward to sharing that with you in our next, in the goals conversation, but this will be a collaborative effort to have a district priorities dashboard, and we can talk about how and where that should live on the website, so there's real clear transparency to the public as to how we're progressing, real-time updates, and so forth. So those are 3 preliminary goals that I wanted to put out to the school committee this evening for consideration. And I'm going to stop there because I'm also interested on the committee side. When there is feedback in my evaluation, I will incorporate that. So there'll be more goals to be established, undoubtedly. But that will come. I just want to give the space so I'm not overwhelming the committee with a lot of information and also adding more goals that I'm not yet aware of. So that's the context. I wanted to just provide that update for you this evening, and happy to answer any questions on what I've provided for concepts, evidence, or any additional questions you might have.
Jen has her hand up.
Thank you. I like the instructional goal, but I would love to see a goal based on instructional improvement, student achievement. I like the fact that you did the, this year was the attendance, and I'm hoping that we're going to keep following that and seeing that improvement as well. But I would love to see instructional improvement. I mean, like student achievement improvement as a goal.
Yeah.
I love that
Yep.
you have this on your radar for the transparency, but you've also been working on that for a year.
So what you don't see, if I can comment, which what you don't see is the dials. So I'm talking about sort of the high level of that, but grade 3 literacy, for example, we've talked about MCAS performance, graduation rates, right? So all of those are part and parcel to this. So there's about 40 or 50 of these metrics to watch. So it's absolutely, the answer is absolutely. We want to make sure we're tracking that instructional part. And the next presentation, you'll have a chance to give some feedback. If you find that it's one of those dashboard dials isn't addressing an area, then we can modify that.
And I'd love to have it as well, not just on the Transparency Center where people have to go look for it, like broadcast it, like make it known
Sure.
that we're doing these improvements. I think it's important.
Yeah, we can make it regular updates and push that out.
Perfect, thank you.
Great suggestions, thank you.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't sure if you were waving.
Yes, thank you. I don't have a lot to add, but I will say that I'm struggling a little bit with the current goals that were approved and voted on by the previous school committee. Something I would really like to see in the goals for the coming year is that they're SMART goals. So what I'm having a hard time with is the measuring of the current goals. There is the evidence, et cetera, but I'd love to see SMART goals and more tangible goals. I'd love to maybe have a goal that's around, yes, student achievement, but a little bit more specific for how do we improve a certain percentage of children so that they're at their reading level, at their grade reading level. Did I say that right? My English as a second language is coming in. So getting kids to grade level in literacy, I think would be really important, but I don't know what the percentage is now, where we are in terms of literacy, and how do you work towards upping that number? So I think that's something I would like to see, and definitely pushing for SMART goals. So very, very clear. That's all.
Absolutely, agreed.
And just point of information for those watching, SMART goals being specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-stamped. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unless there's any
Anyone
other
else?
questions, that concludes my report on this part of the agenda. Okay, just a couple of announcements then, and I'll hand it back to you, Madam Chair. Graduation is on Friday at 5:30 p.m. Hopefully the weather will hold. It promises right now to be a hot afternoon. Hopefully it'll cool off in the evening, and hopefully the rain and thunder and lightning will stay away. But we'll plan for Friday at 5:30 p.m. at Bowditch Field. I'm also thrilled to share that the middle school METG, that's the Theater Guild, musical theater nominations are in with 17 nominations for 13 different awards across all 3 of our middle schools. So congratulations to our talent on the stage, behind the scenes, and to our faculty staff who've led our kids to where they are, and to all the amazing talent. And then finally, congratulations to Adriana DeGroat, who's been named an academic All-American by the National High School Coaches Association, a tremendous student athlete. So lots of great things happening in our student body. So that concludes my report, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you so much. Are there any questions before we move on from this agenda topic? Anything further? Okay. Up next, we're turning over to Assistant Superintendent for Pre-K to 12 Education Update, Ann Ludis.
Thank you and good evening. Joanna, if you could put the slides up, that would be great. And as she does that, I know that this is separate from Dr. Tremblay's goals, but with the Teaching and Learning Subcommittee, we will have student-specific SMART goals that we'll share like drafts of at the next Teaching and Learning Subcommittee meeting that are specifically focused on student achievement and measurable and all of that. So I'm more than happy to incorporate any of those metrics in there that we would like as well. All right, so you may recall about a year ago, Framingham Public Schools submitted a waiver to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to a waiver from the student learning time requirements for the FHS Academy day and evening programs at Thayer. That waiver application was approved, and we were able to move forward with it was a one-year application, one-year waiver. We were able to move forward and have a I would say very successful year this year. We had record numbers of students graduating, which is outstanding. So now it's time, though, to apply for another waiver, and we have been encouraged by the Department of Education to apply for a 2-year waiver this time, which I also see as encouraging, although they did give us feedback on last year's application so that we could strengthen it moving forward. So I'm going to give you some brief updates here, and Joanna, thank you. You know me so well. You're already on that first slide that has content on it. We are looking for that 2-year waiver application approval from all of you so that we can submit this application. The deadline for us to submit is June 12th. Next slide, please. You have the full application, but one of the very first questions is, what is the need for this waiver? There are many needs. There are many reasons for this. The one that I've shown here, spotlighted here, has to do with our 9th grade retention rate. Retention sometimes is a good thing. You want to retain staff. Retain means that they stay. But in education, retention means that they stay in that grade, meaning that they're held back. So to be promoted to the next grade in high school, you have to earn enough credits to be promoted to the next grade. In 2025, so the 2024-2025 school year, 19.6% of 9th graders were retained. And the numbers get even worse when you look at the percent of English learners or the percent of students with disabilities, as you see up here. Why am I looking at that when we're talking about the FHS Academy, which is for 10th, 11th, and 12th graders? Well, retention in 9th grade in particular is an early warning indicator of the potential to drop out of high school. So if we're looking at students who might potentially drop out of high school, these are some of the students that we would initially want to target to provide additional supports. Students who are in 9th grade, even if they haven't earned enough credits, there are other programs that are available for them at FHS. They cannot actually attend the FHS Academy unless they have earned at least 5 credits to become a 10th grader, because a lot of that has to do with the number of years and the amount of support that the FHS Academy can actually provide. The school is very small, the staff is very small, and being in that school for 4 consecutive years would be, we believe, too much, given the size of the school and the resources available to the program. Therefore, we really make this program accessible to students in grades 10, 11, and 12 only. Some of the other reasons why students are not able to, that we might need this waiver, is really that 990 6-hour requirement of seat time, the rigidity of the structure of the FHS school day, the start time, the end time, the fact that that's when you must take your classes really becomes a barrier, specifically for those that have family commitments. They have to take care of a child at home, whether it's their own child or it's a family member, or they have to work to support their family. And if the FHS school day conflicts with either of those responsibilities, in some cases, students have no choice but to, put their personal responsibilities and needs ahead of their education. Next slide, please. So how do we address that? We have the two programs. We have the day program and we have the evening program. And what I would say is that the two programs kind of have a different model to them and serve different needs, although the waiver application allows us to be fluid and flexible in how we use the day program and the evening program. But in the day program, typically we're talking about students who they can still attend school for approximately a typical school day, during the day, but maybe they need a smaller setting. They need to form stronger relationships and closer relationships or have more touch points with adults throughout the day that really know them and know them well. So students in the day program typically take more synchronous classes, meaning live face-to-face classes, but the structure is a little bit easier for them to manage, given the size of the school and also the opportunity to leave early for work study placements. So they find that they're more successful in that model. For the evening academy, we are typically dealing with students who are working all day long. And so imagine working all day long and then having 6 hours of school in the evening where you're sitting in a seat just trying to get through each class. I mean, it's tough, right? I mean, imagine one of these meetings being your school day after working a full day, right? So that's really tough for our students. So having the flexibility of asynchronous courses where they have individual check-ins with teachers every day virtually, or they come in for some classes and then they are asynchronous for others, we have a lot of flexibility there. Now, I've given two very kind of disjointed or separate models. We certainly have students in the day program that take asynchronous courses, and we certainly have students in the evening program who take face-to-face courses as well, live courses face-to-face. So it's not that it's either one or the other, but that tends to be the trend in those models. But what's most important is that we're not lowering the standards. We are focused on mastery and competency-based skills. So mastery of the standards, mastery of the content, at the pace that is appropriate for that student, but then the competency is based on the life skills, the transferable skills, their ability to manage time, their self-advocacy, their perseverance, their problem solving. So those are the different types of skills that we focus on. Next slide. Maintaining those high standards means that we are focusing on high quality instructional materials. This is a shift for next year. The Department of Ed, you've heard me talk about HQIM, high quality instructional materials. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has, made it clear to us that we have to really strengthen that. Not that they have seen our curriculum, but that they wanted us to be able to provide evidence that we are aligned with HQIM. And so we are making a shift to some open source materials that will allow teachers to modify the curriculum so that it's appropriate for an alternative educational setting while still being high quality. And then also, we're really strengthening our supports through the daily advisory check-ins and individualized learning plans, which we have. But this year was a learning process for those ILPs, those learning plans, and over the course of this year, we've improved upon them, and I think they'll be even stronger next year. And most importantly, as you heard me talk about in the first half of this school year, we now have competency determination requirements. We have that new policy. And the coursework and the advisory and the supports being provided will align with those CD policy requirements. Next slide, please. I talked about success. This year, 67% of the students in the day program are graduating on Friday, and 61% of the students in the evening program are graduating on Friday. Now, they're not all seniors, so 67% of the students who attended the FHS Academy during the day are graduating, but 96% of them earn 6 credits or more this year, which is outstanding, and 6 credits is a typical school year. So 96% of the students advanced to the next grade or graduated. So that's outstanding. And again, in the Evening Academy, 61% are graduating, 89% of the total population earn 6 credits or more. So we consider that very, very strong results. Next slide. We're just looking for approval of this 2-year waiver application. There was a presentation at the Teaching and Learning Subcommittee meeting on May 19th, where the subcommittee voted to approve and refer this waiver application to the full school committee. And I will stop there and answer any questions that you have.
Brent?
Thank you. I'm fully in support of this. The success of this program, especially over the last year, has been inspiring. As we look at our retention rate for freshmen, I'm curious what we might be considering for supporting our rising 8th graders. The transition from middle school to high school is challenging for all sorts of reasons, and I think that feels like a good area to focus energy to address some of these concerns.
It absolutely is, and thank you for asking that question. Principal Albright, in one of our very first conversations when I returned to the district, he brought that up, and he has built it into his school improvement plan to focus on the 8th to 9th grade transition. He's got a series of different pieces, including communications with and partnering with the middle schools on supporting students. I have to stop talking with my hands. In supporting the course placements of students, the recommendations that teachers are making, and also the onboarding of the students into the school. We also do have other programs that support, for example, students who are retained. We have a Student Success Academy that does help those students kind of build that smaller school feeling within the bigger school. Obviously, Framingham High School is quite large, but they this Student Success Academy is one of the houses, and so the students get a lot of individualized support and attention through that model as well, in the hopes that even if they might want or need to attend the FHS Academy at Thayer during the day or evening program later on down the road, at least getting them to the credits that make them eligible for that program as well. But Mr. Albright, as I was saying before, he has a really robust program about the selecting the teachers that are teaching the students in 9th grade and helping them with that transition as they come in.
All right, I will accept a motion to approve the student learning time waiver for FHS academies at Thayer day and evening programs.
So moved.
Moved by Kyle.
Second.
Second by Willie. Any further discussion? All right, we'll go, all those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, 900. And then we have the start and end times at FHS Academy next.
Yes, thank you. And this is not technically related to the SLT waiver application. However, Jacob Hansen is the coordinator at the FHS Academy, and he has done a really remarkable job. Prior to his tenure, the Thayer School campus did not have bus transportation, and he worked with Lincoln Lynch and Angela Furtado, the director of transportation, to arrange bus transportation for the students at Thayer. However, this year, I believe, is the first year of that, right? The school day starts at 8:30, but the bus is scheduled to arrive at 9:15. So if you do the math there, the bus arrives 45 minutes after the school day has started. So Mr. Hansen has creatively worked with the schedule to make the first 45 minutes of the day, a project-based learning block or a credit recovery block for the families that are able, or for the students rather, that are able to get to school, but recognizes that without transportation, there's still a barrier to getting to school. So while it was a wonderful, valiant initial first step, it still isn't really an ideal situation. So he went back to Angela Furtado, and they worked out another way to provide that transportation. But what that now does is it results in the bus arriving at the FHS Academy at Thayer campus. I'm still struggling with that full title. At the Thayer campus at around 7:50 or 7:55 in the morning. School starts at 8:30. We kind of had some ideas for how to make that work and what we would do with that half hour, but the teachers at the school said, we've got the kids here, we want to get started with them right away. We just, when they arrive, we don't want to give them a reason to kind of leave or not engage right away. As soon as they come in, we want to engage with them. And so this request is actually coming from the teachers to move the start time from 8:30 up to 8 o'clock so that as soon as the students arrive, the school day begins. I will say, I know it seems early and it is counterintuitive considering what the SAC has presented today, but this is a full hour later than the buses arrive at FHS. So it is still later than the FHS arrival time for transportation for buses. And on the flip side, for students who do work in the afternoon, it actually gives them more time in the afternoon or early evening to work. So they will be out of school 30 minutes earlier as well. So it does provide that option. And it does provide the option or the opportunity for students to receive transportation and arrive at school at the start of the school day every day. And that would then allow, going back to the SLT waiver application, students would, or the school would be able to start the day the way they want, which is with an advisory block, where they're checking in with the students every day, seeing where they're at with their courses, helping them develop a plan for the day and making sure that they start on the right note. This year, we had about 5 students that drove to school. Others would have depended on bus transportation. What Mr. Hansen has learned from parents is that, and students often arrived late, and what he discovered is that parents would be getting ready for work, they would wake their children up, and then they would go to work. But the bus was coming later, and so what would any typical teenager do? They'd get back into bed, and then they sleep through the bus, and they miss the bus entirely, and then they Uber to school, which is definitely not how we want students to get to school. So this we see as a, obviously not ideal that students would be starting school 30 minutes earlier, but we do see that the benefits outweigh the costs in this case. So we are asking for a change to the start time, which would also mean a change, this slight update to the school calendar for next year.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve the changes to the start and end times at FHS Academy at Thayer Day Program?
So moved.
Moved by Jen.
Second.
Second by Willie. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, 9-0-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And the next one's yours too.
I know, it sure is. I'm keeping you all busy. Now, I could give you a pop quiz because now we're shifting over to the educational program for the new school building project. I won't give you a pop quiz, but we've done 2 updates already, so this one will be very brief. But I did warn you that this would come with a very big educational program packet. It's 70-something pages, so I do apologize for that. I also want to acknowledge that the table of contents is missing all of the page numbers. Those have been added in. I was waiting until the very last edit to do that because as soon as you start making edits, it changes the page numbers, everything shifts. So I put the last edit in and I sent the final document to Joanna for you all to get as soon as possible, and I forgot to update the pages. So I have added the page numbers to the beginning. Joanna, you can go right to slide 3. This is just to remind you that we have had a very robust educational visioning process that involved planning meetings with district leaders. It involved community workshops. We also had a community survey, the educational visioning group that involved people from across the district. And there was an educator meeting where one valiant staff member attended, but it was a wonderful meeting with a lot of great feedback that aligned with work that was already in the educational program. So that was kind of reinforced that we were moving in the right direction. And that video is on the website if you would like to see it. The date for the last community input or last community workshop was going to be June 18th, but I think it's now July 8th, I believe it is. July 8th. I can double check the date, but just at this week's school building committee meeting, it's July 8th. So it was TBD at the time that I sent this packet to you. But the date was moved because June 18th, the school building committee felt we wouldn't have any additional updates at that time, but by July 8th, we should have more. Next slide, please. Again, this is just a reminder that we are dealing with these other challenges in terms of what is the site selection, the imbalance between where students live and where the schools are located, looking at the controlled school choice model that we have and trying to achieve universal pre-K. That's all bundled into this school building project, so we try to keep it as complicated as possible for ourselves in this city. Next slide, please. And again, just a reminder that there were 4 different models, one that involves a rebuild of the current Hemingway, of a school at the current Hemingway lot, or a renovation of that building, a new South Side school location at Bethany Road, a combination of a new South Side building and a renovation of the existing Hemingway at the city cost, or the 4th option is to create a smaller school on the Bethany site while renovating the Hemingway building, where the combined total enrollment at those 2 locations adds up to 985 students. So those were the 4 models that were referenced in the educational program. Next slide, please. As part of the educational visioning, I'm not going to review all of the different pieces that I've already talked about. I thought I'd add in some of the other work that had happened or other touch points that were not yet discussed. The workshops, the visioning workshops actually began in 2023 with an early education focus, pre-K and K focus, led by West Ed, which is an outside consulting firm, and they identified some of the guiding principles, including family and community partnerships and culturally inclusive curriculum and play-based learning. But then in 2026, this year, we've had some additional educational visioning workshops where we landed on some of the same ideas about community, right, and outdoor learning and student-centered learning. We also focused on that cultural inclusivity and a place where you want to be. I love that that is so important to the members that were involved in this work. You want to be able to walk into this building and feel like this is a place where you belong, and that's really important. We also want it to feel safe. And flexible and adaptable means that we are building this building for the next 50 years. We only know what we know now. We have no idea what 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now will look like. And so we want the space not only to be flexible in terms of our learning needs now, but also 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now. Next slide, please. We talked a lot about how to take this 985 student school and make it feel smaller. So I've referenced this before about instructional wings that are smaller so that certain grades will be clustered together in certain components or parts of the building. Again, to help the students feel like they're part of a smaller community within this large building. We also talked about having localized supports, so administrative supports, conference spaces, administrative offices, breakout spaces in each of those wings so that those specific resources are available in each different cohort of the school. Next slide. And 2 of the spaces I did not yet talk about, but I'm very excited about, are the Library Media Center. This was probably my joy in writing this educational program, was to talk about what that library could be. If you've ever been in the Hemingway Library, it is the saddest, Karen Rothwell does an amazing job as the LMS there, but it is the saddest, most cramped space you could possibly imagine. Having such a small library we're trying to teach a love of literacy, a love of reading, a love of discovery, and having such a tiny space, it's got to be so hard for Karen to do everything that she wants to do there. So the vision of this new library is that it's, of course, much larger. It has really right-sized display cases for the students where there are places where there's even like a little maker lab area where students can explore and build and discover, and a computer station where it's not taking away from the bookshelves, but it's actually built in and intentional that you would have computer stations set up in the library for the digital literacy lessons. And then there's also the Family Center, and this came up in the visioning workshops as well. And this is really about having kind of going back to the community schools model, having a resource, a space that is specific for families, for family conferences, for educational educational sessions, to caregiver, just a place for caregivers to go, even with their younger children, that is dedicated to them and provides them with the resources that they might need, whether it's to have a quiet, private conversation or learn about ways to support their children better. Next slide. This educational program will be in the packet called the PDP, the Preliminary Design Plan, that is submitted in July. And we will receive feedback from the MSBA on this educational program, and it will need to be revised and refined for the next phase, which is called the Preferred Schematic Report, the PSR, which will be submitted in December. So this is not probably the only time you'll be hearing me talk about the educational program, but at this point, we have locked it in. It is ready to be submitted to the MSBA for the PDP. And so at this point, I will just pause and open it up to any questions, and certainly would ask for your approval of this plan for submission to the MSBA.
Anyone have a question? Kyle.
Yes, thank you. And this was I've enjoyed watching this project come along. With the Family Center, it sounds like there is an intention to open the school under the community schools model like they're doing at McCarthy.
I think that, that's up to Dr. Tremblay, but I know that the idea is that more and more of these schools do exist. So I think the more we can support families, I think the better. And even if it doesn't become a community school model, having this space and this resource in and of itself will just, again, go back to a place where families feel welcomed, where there's a space for them. So this is a building that is thought of us, thought of me. And so I think it will be a valued resource in the school. We saw examples of this in other buildings when we were going through the visioning process. We were exposed to schools that have done this, and they talked about the way it was used in the evenings for family events, the way it was used during the day for conferences, and I just think it would be a wonderful addition to the school.
Thank you.
Brent?
I'll just add appreciation. This was an interesting read, and I'm so grateful that you presented it weeks in advance. It made the reading easier. I have a lot of excitement around this project still. I still have some wonderings about nothing that will impact this report. I think it's perfect and ready to submit, but connecting our new school to the the transit system. And I would love to learn more about what pre-K expansion looks like. It's so exciting that we're reaching potentially 100% with this new construction. So there's a lot to celebrate. Thank you for this tremendous amount of work, and I'd make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Motion to approve the educational program for MSBA supported Framingham Pre-K to 5 Early Education Center, for which Hemingway School is the subject property. Is that okay?
Second.
Okay. MSBA has specific language requirements. So, moved by Brent and seconded by Willie. Any further discussion? Adam.
Thank you very much. Really great work on this. Very excited to see this moving forward. Two quick questions. In the Word document, the section on New South Side with North Reno. There's a line on page 50 about consolidating cohorts. I'm wondering if you can elaborate on what the consolidating cohorts at the other named schools is about.
So tell me what page number?
50,
50. Oh,
second paragraph.
I'm almost there. So this is in the section on, oh, this is about the pre-kindergarten. So second paragraph.
It's about the
Yep, consolidating.
kindergarten class.
Yeah, so a lot of what we're trying to do is with this MSBA proposal, we've had to identify, they're asking us to fill a school with 985 students because they did their calculations and said we need a school for 985 students. We currently don't have 985 students in that school, or in Hemingway, right? The reason they are saying that we need that is because our other schools are not right-sized. So they're saying, how can you pull out of those other school programs, like out of those other schools and release space? So when you think about the other schools, what can we take out of those buildings in terms of classrooms and move them into this space to free up space in schools like Stapleton or Barberry or Dunning or any of the schools that are right now overcrowded? And by overcrowded, I mean the schools don't feel overcrowded, but in terms of MSBA standards, they're overcrowded. And so looking at this, I'm just going to read this. So looking at this, we're talking about taking kindergarten classrooms. So this is the grand vision. This is if we do reach 100% pre-K capacity. This is in that pre-K section. In this particular model, if we have the full 985 K-5 student capacity at Bethany, plus some of the additional pre-K classrooms and the city investment in renovating Hemingway into another pre-K K center, we can take classrooms out of Stapleton, out of Dunning, out of King, kindergarten classrooms, and move them to either the spaces at the Bethany Road site or the new Hemingway renovated pre-K K center. And that would take some of that pressure. The kindergarten cohort is the cohort that's being referred to, but take that pressure out of those other buildings so that the spaces can be better utilized.
Understood, and that's really helpful. And I think that's also consistent with the plan to help with the neighborhood school mentality and have kids who have been traveling across Route 9 to the schools you just mentioned, some of them not have to anymore. I just wanted to flag that because not for an edit, but just for clarification in case someone ever asks, because the domino effect that could happen on other schools, some could read this and wonder, hey, well, are those named schools still going to have kindergarten? And the answer is yes, just a different level of classrooms, right?
Well, so potentially, it all depends on, so there's a lot of funding that has to go behind this. Besides the renovation of the building, any pre-K classroom that you add involves staffing, furniture, materials in order to have that classroom. But if we have if we go 100% pre-K capacity, where every student, every family that wants a seat in pre-K in this district gets a seat in pre-K, we would need that Hemingway building, at least with the current buildings that we have and with this new building design, we would need to renovate Hemingway to be a pre-K K center, and then we would treat Juniper Hill, but this is a potential design, treat Juniper Hill, treat the renovated Hemingway as pre-KK early education centers and redistribute kindergarten classrooms to those schools. So then Juniper Hill wouldn't just be pre-K and preschool anymore. It would actually also have kindergarten. But again, we're shifting classrooms, and these are students who are not in schools yet. These are not, they wouldn't be taken out of the school where they already have established relationships. They'd be entering school in a different location than maybe previously. But McCarthy, Harmony Grove are also schools that house pre-K, so we can add, they would be able to keep pre-K there, and we'd create pre-KK centers in every school that has pre-K. And so in theory, we could take the kindergarten classes out of many of those schools and create grade 1 to 5 schools and again, use that additional saved space to create larger libraries, to create appropriately sized OT and PT spaces in the schools, or give the coaches or teachers properly sized collaboration spaces so people aren't working in closets anymore. It's an option.
No, thank you. It's one of 4 options in this document, but at the last school building committee, they even talked about going to 5 or 6 options. So just continue to track it and understand the effects on the other buildings too. My final question is more about on page 62, the STEM makerspace. Was that a MSBA required section that you just had to check the box and say there wasn't going to be one?
That is correct.
Thank you.
All right. We haven't voted on this yet, have we? Okay. All right. All those in favor? Raise your hand. All right, 900. Motion passes. Thank you so much. We'll send that over.
Madam Chair, before you move on, may I?
Yeah.
I just wanted to give a special shout out to Ann Ludis for her tremendous work on this and really the hours you put into. You did this for Fuller Middle School when you were here, so we're glad we have you back just in time to complete this one, and your expertise has just been amazing, so thank you for all the effort you've put into this. Really.
Join Bob.
We all agree. Thank you
Yeah.
for that opportunity.
Thank you, and I also want to echo his thanks too. Much appreciated and all the work you did, and it was nice getting it early as well, as Brent mentioned. But, okay, I think that closes out that section. Yep, okay. School Building Committee update. Flop over to Adam for the School Building Committee Vice Chair, Adam Freudberg, for additional updates.
Thank you very much, and feel free to other members who are on the committee to join. I feel like we are equals on the building committee, even though I have that, vice chair role, so please chime in. Our last meeting was this past Monday, the 1st, and Ms. Luda's presentation really tackled a lot of what we heard, so I'm not going to re-up that beyond just the additional conversation about reevaluating the different aspects and the challenges and moving forward. And there was a detailed presentation from the architects on the 4 proposed build scenarios: north side rebuild, new south side plus North Reno, and the dual site model. For the rest of my update today, Joanna is going to share one slide that I thought just helps frame what's next. This is a slide from the owner project manager Vertex, and it shows that red box on the left is where we are now through the end of July. And so we are going to continue as a school building committee to work with the design team to review, now that we're past educational programming and submitting that to the MSBA, continue to build on that, and we'll look at all those things on the left side. The next meeting is June 29th, and then there's another meeting July 13th that will conclude the preliminary design program phase with a submission to the MSBA by the building committee. Then the group shifts to more focus on where specifically will the building be located, either Hemingway or Bethany, or a combination of both. And then in the next calendar year, this shows the next phase called the MSBA's schematic design report process, focused on all that needs to happen on that list to get to a building design, cost analysis, and start the funding plan to fund the new building and/or renovation. So I thought this was a good kind of single chart to show everyone what is next, and the building committee will continue that work in partnership with this committee and others at the next meeting on June 29th.
Great. Are there any questions? Go ahead.
I have a question about budget and how the finances work. I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the state will pay up to 61% or so. The remaining percentage is covered by taxpayers. I'm still a little bit confused about the 2 sites that we're talking about. So we're going to have, there are plans to renovate Hemingway with a new site location at Bethany Hill. How are we paying for both of those projects that are one project? can we give a little bit of information about that, just because we are going to move on to budget discussions later on tonight, and I'm just, like, the dollar sign is on my mind, so I'd love some clarity, because maybe I'm just very lost.
Sure, it's the city, I'll turn over to the district in a moment, but the city capital budget process is the way to go here. And the MSBA has authorized us to be eligible for their funding. And so we go through the city capital appropriation process for that and meet certain steps that the MSBA Board of Directors requires of us in advance of their timelines. And then the project would be bonded through, just like any other capital project, through the city bonding process. It's the exact same model that happened with the Fuller Middle School building in 2018 when that approval happened. And there are different ratios of what the state considers eligible for that up to 61% and not. And I suggest, in the interest of time, I'll turn over to the district, but this is a much longer complexity that we should have packet materials to answer all your questions and presentations, that there's plenty of time in my mind for that aspect, since it's about a 20 to 30 year bonding process, not anything to do with the current fiscal situation. Understanding, of course, there's the operating dollars to support the schools once they're built, but I see it as also separate too, if that helps, and see Mr. Lynch looking to chime in as well, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Sure. So as Mr. Freiberg mentioned, the capital budget, I believe it was last year and the prior year combined, we got 2.6 million in capital to pay for the feasibility study, the schematic design. So that's already accounted for. As part of the MSBA process, you have to look at your current location to see if you can build on the property, build up, build out, as well as other sites. So that's why we're looking at both sites. And that's why we don't call it the Bethany project, because we're looking at the Hemingway School. But the costs are already allocated and paying for the study that's happening now. I want to make one other point too. You talked about the reimbursement through the state. They only reimburse eligible costs. So there's difference between ineligible and eligible costs in this project. And if you just take the, say, $100 million project, you say 61%, you think you're going to get 61 million, you will not. You're not going to get 61 million. You're going to get a significant amount of money, but there are ineligible costs like legal fees and other soft costs that are not eligible for reimbursement. So I just want to make that clear. Yep.
Yeah, I just want to point out that this is actually very helpful information to constituents, because many people don't understand the different buckets and spaces, and so thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, I'll just add that the study Mr. Lynch mentioned that's already approved is also MSBA reimbursable, so that 2.6 million, the MSBA gives a share back to the city as part of that process. And I do agree with you that this is very helpful, and we should have more robust conversations. I mean, even MASC, the Mass Associated School Committee, has a joint presentation that's online now with the MSBA about how their funding works. I encourage people to look at that. Maybe our executive assistant can send that out and flag it for online too, as well as numerous resources on the MSBA website. But it's also really complicated how state finance works. And so we can have more conversation, at future agendas in my mind as we get to it. At some point, the school committee in 2027, calendar year 27, would take specific votes, and that would also be a time where the votes are about appropriation requests to the mayor and city council, and having more financial conversations then once much more is known about sites and designs.
Okay. Anything else? All right, great. Thanks for your report. I appreciate you sharing that slide too. We will go to Executive Director of Finance and Operations update. We'll turn it over to Lincoln Lynch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everybody. First on the agenda, capital budgets. Just a quick update on this. We're continuing work on our geothermal phase 2 with the city at the Farley location. So that's going to happen the Flag Drive and Normandy corner of the Farley site. We're 90+% complete with our Farley solar design. So that is a study to see what kind of solar we can put on the roof at Farley. The roof has recently been replaced, so now the piece of it is putting solar on the roof. Another thing that ties into that is the geothermal project. So those two projects are going to be working side by side, and there's all timing. You have to figure out of, do you put the solar on first? Do you replace rooftop units or the geothermal? So a lot of work is going into that study. More to come on that in the near future. We're also working on fire alarm design for Cameron and Harmony Grove, and then the MSBA project that we discussed tonight. The Hemingway project, but also two other MSBA projects that we are working on now through the feasibility process is the Brophy roof replacement and the Potter Brophy roof replacement that we have been accepted through the MSBA accelerated repair project. For the summer, which is right around the corner, we'll be installing a Lula lift, which is a limited use lift at King. That is to start the day after school gets out. We're also going into phase 2 of the Juniper Hill roof replacement. Again, as soon as school is out, we start. We have less than 2 months to get that done. So this is a really busy time for facilities, buildings, and grounds over the summer to get these major projects completed. We are also designing now and building a pre-K playground at both Harmony Grove and McCarthy for this summer. As Ann mentioned, there are pre-K classrooms at both those schools. So when the new pre-K class comes to school next year, they will have brand new playgrounds that are fit more for our pre-K students. Also this summer, we are resurfacing the back gym at the high school and replacing the HVAC sump at Cameron. Those are both projects that were actually approved last night as part of the second reading of the capital budget. Any questions so far? Okay, great. Just to quickly note, last night, $2.2 million in capital funding was approved through the second reading. Real quick, floor maintenance, equipment replacement, design of paving, stormwater, and solar at Barberry. Cameron fire alarm replacement. And then the two playgrounds, McCarthy and Harmony. The resurfacing of the gym, the Cameron HVAC, and then high school theater lighting upgrade. The timing of these approvals is not going to allow us to do as many projects as we wanted to this summer just because of the procurement and the advertising that needs to happen before we start. So some of these projects will be deferred to next summer. But we will be getting the gym resurfaced, the HVAC sump, and the two playgrounds finished this summer. Any questions on capital?
Is there any way to do some of these projects during vacation time, like Christmas vacation week?
I would say, looking at these, no. The design for the Barberry paving, that will be an ongoing project, so yes on that. But a fire alarm replacement, a resurfacing of the front high school gym, and the theater lighting upgrade at the high school, we just don't have enough time to do that over a break, so it has to be done over the summer.
Thanks.
Okay.
I think it's important to do an analysis of the fiscal impact of not having the charter followed from the February 28th capital process to now. I understand that timelines can change. In this case, the operating budget changed, but the capital budget did not have to change in my mind. And all of these projects that you were planning on doing this summer are now delayed. And I understand there's contingency funding in there as well, but it was your intent to do them this summer. And now, because of the city process delays, I'm looking for an analysis of that at some point later this year to understand what financially that means as well.
Yes, we can certainly do that. Once we get updated quotes with escalation based on doing it in summer of 27 versus this summer, we can absolutely share that with the committee.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay. Next agenda item is just the FY26 operating budget. Again, we are working to close out purchase orders, make sure all invoices are paid this year to avoid prior year bills. We are at 82.8% spend rate, which is really good. We're very close to where we were last year. We have an available balance of $31.49 million. As part of the next agenda item, we'll talk about ways to reduce the FY27 budget gap, but that has to do with FY26 and then the available balance that we're looking to end up with after June 30th. So just a reminder, we have put a budget slowdown on. Any absolute student needs, staff needs are being purchased, but other than that, we have slowed the budget way down. It's pretty normal to happen in June. We only have, 27 days left of June. So we are really focusing on closing out purchase orders, getting invoices paid so we can close out the year as quickly as possible. But we are on track to end up in the black, and then some surplus, hopefully that can help out the FY27 budget. Any questions?
Oh, Jen?
Any idea about what you're thinking about a surplus? I mean, we're not talking $1 million, we're talking 100,000, we're talking 20,000. What do you think?
So my goal is $500,000. So a $500,000 surplus to end this year. That's in combination of the operating budget plus circuit breaker. And then what we do is do journal entries at the end of the year and carry that $500,000 in circuit breaker to account and pay for FY27 tuitions, which we could reduce the FY27 budget ask based on that $500,000. So $500,000 is the goal. It was zero. We were on track with the budget slowdown. It's going to be close, but I think we'll be okay. And Mr. Freudberg had one. Sorry, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I've always liked to describe that as a intentionally saved surplus based on the slowdown. My question for you has some FY26 implications, but also crosses over into the next agenda item too. Based on what's been happening in our community, there are rumors of more staff leaving. Some of that is normal, some of that is up and down, some of it's rumors. Does that, though, from a fiscal perspective, allow you to take any additional risk or put into the staff churn budget that's already around, what, $5.75 million? Is there any chance that you could elevate that slightly higher because of additional people who may have already given notice that they are leaving that weren't originally anticipated? As terrible as this is, I'm asking simply from a fiscal perspective as we're talking about how to close a $3.3 million gap.
Yeah. I would strongly recommend against increasing the $5.75 million turnover savings. We're seeing a lot slower churn this year, and I think we're going to have to do some journal entries, some budget adjustments to cover the salary savings that we thought we were going to get. I think it's going to be pretty close, but I would strongly recommend not to increase that 5.75 in the FY27 budget.
Okay, I understand that. I was thinking even a couple $100K might be new because it's June now, but I understand. I would have regretted not asking. Thank you.
Yep, that's a good question. And just to forecast future years, I think my recommendation, say for the FY28 budget that we're putting together now, that $5.75 million is going to be lower just based on what we've been seeing the last couple of years. Okay. Okay. No other questions?
No other questions.
Okay.
FY26.
Final agenda item is the FY27 operating budget. So just an update for those who did not watch last night at the City Council meeting. The first reading of the FY27 budget was voted on and passed, so that's the first reading. Second reading, I believe, is scheduled for the 16th, June 16th. In the first reading of the budget, our school department budget number is $187,418,448. It's a 2.24% increase, just over 4.1 million more than what we have budgeted for this year. So that number is significant because the current school committee budget is $3,239,420 more than what the mayor's number is. So as of tonight, we still have a budget gap of over $3.2 million. My goal tonight is to request, whether it's one vote or a series of votes, to close that gap this evening. The budget process has been 248 days since we started back on September 29th. With the goal of changing the charter, allowing for an earlier budget process end, so folks can, if we happen to have cuts, which we do now, they have an opportunity to get a job elsewhere. We are now into June, so their opportunities to do that is very slim. So I would recommend that we try to move as swiftly as possible to get to a final number and to close that gap. So the folks that are being let go have an opportunity still to get a job in another district or elsewhere. So in your packet tonight is our recommendation to close that $3.239 million gap. Hopefully everyone had an opportunity to take a look at that, but just real quick, it does include a reduction of 31 more positions. We did an analysis on those 31 positions. Of the 31, there are 9 actual cuts, I believe 9 non-reappoints, 6 transfers, and 7 open positions. So 9 actual cuts. So we talk about, if there's 31 people being cut, it's actually 9 people being cut. And then the rest are either open positions or those people in those positions can transfer to another open position across the district. So in combination with those 31 positions, as we just discussed about circuit breaker, with the budget slowdown, I'm recommending that we use $500,000 as a carryover in circuit breaker from this year to next year. That would reduce the special ed tuition line in the FY27 budget. I would also recommend that we project an additional $417,232 in our reimbursement for next year. So circuit breaker reimbursement program is the way that the state reimburses districts for transportation and tuition. There's certain percentages. The goal is a 75% reimbursement for both tuition and transportation. The past couple years, 75%, they've hit the number every year on tuition. Transportation, I believe this year is 66%, and it did not go up to 75%. The hope is, and the risk that we're willing to take, is to go up from the mid 60% up to 70% reimbursement, and that would give us an additional $417,000 for next year. Now, the special ed tuition and transportation is so volatile that we're simply projecting what we're going to spend next year. That could change drastically by families moving into Framingham where their child needs special ed, out-of-district services, and that budget could exceed, $500,000. So that budget could change so much. So I am confident in taking this risk to increase what our reimbursement is for next year. So the combination of those two circuit breaker recommendations is $917,232. And then the final piece of it is the way that we handle our translations. Currently, we do have a list of people that work additional hours and translate. We're looking at a way to change how that's done, actually bring on someone that full-time, that's all they do, and then we're able to reduce additional salaries and reduce some vendor expenses that we have on the expense side. That would be a projected savings of $246,612. So all of this combined, as seen in your packet, would close the gap of $3.2 million and get us to $187,218,448. So that's the recommendation this evening.
Okay, so before we begin our discussion on the FY27 budget, I do want to take a moment and just thank everyone who came out to speak and to advocate for our students. The level of engagement we've seen throughout the process really reflects how deeply our community cares. about public education. I respect the passion, commitment, and the perspectives that have been shared during what has been a very difficult budget cycle. I didn't realize it was 248 days, but thank you for pointing that information out. I knew it was quite a lot of time. So because of last night's City Council, we now have more clarity regarding the funding level being provided by the mayor and City Council. Our responsibility now is to take that number and determine how we use those resources to put forward the strongest educational program for our community. The question before us really isn't what we wish that number to be, but how do we fund and sustain programs and services with what's going to be provided. The superintendent, obviously, we just heard the recommendations. Those have been coming along since January, and additional materials have been included in our packets. Over the past months, we've received presentations, reviewed data, heard from staff, families, students, and community members, and carefully considered the challenges and opportunities before us. And there's been quite an emotional piece for that journey involved. We've all been there. We've all been through it together. But there have been times that there's been a lot of emotion on many different sides. So our role, we're going to weigh the input we've received alongside the facts and recommendations that have been presented and be thoughtful and responsible and focused on the long-term interests of our students and our schools. We also do have, this is a timely decision piece that I think we've gone over a little bit. We know that there are contractual deadlines that require action, and inaction could create additional challenges and consequences for our educational professionals and students in our broader community. So with that, I do want to make sure that we all are under the understanding that we have plenty of time to have a productive and respectful conversation, and I'll turn it over. Jen, you have your hand up first, and I'm sure everyone has kind of questions and comments.
First, I have a question. If we don't vote to pass this, what's the repercussions? Do we have to give layoff notices to every teacher in the district because we don't know?
Yeah. I mean, it's a complicated question, right? Because right now we're operating on sort of a straw poll, apart from the vote that was taken yesterday evening by the City Council on a first reading, which was made clear in the meeting yesterday that that's amendable between now and the second reading. So I would be surprised if that number went to be lesser, although that's a worry. Right now, everybody who's on this list, and again, we're talking about programming, I mean, none of this is a wish list of ours that we think is great, right? Just to be clear on that. And of the programs that have been here, we did our best to put forward a reduction, but not an elimination of, with the exception of Mandarin at Walsh, which has come up before. Apart from that, these are programmatic reductions, with the hope that you can bring them back to full restoration in a better time. But just to make that point clear. But to answer your question, we're hedging on what we know to date. And we have a really important statutory deadline of June 15th to, I think this is where you were headed. If we don't vote something and we just keep sort of pushing this out to some later date, we're going to have to notify all of our non-PTS staff that the budget is not resolved, which is about 47% of our staff across the district, which is a significant scare. And you lose a lot of employees. You lose a lot of people because if you're not sure, and already I would argue we're losing some because of this multi-100-day timeline. We've got to bring some closure to this, even though it's not ideal, because we've got to give notice. Everybody on this list has been provided notice. So I guess to answer your question, if this was not voted tonight, what happens? And we bring this back to the City Council. City Council could choose to say, as they have already, we'll give this to the taxpayers for a referendum. Which case that would delay this budget. We would actually be able to close out and be done by the end of June. And then we would be into a whole other complicated situation of how to fund the FY27 budget. So I think there's got to be a give. Right now we have a sense from the City Council of what they're agreeable to do, whether they would have 2/3 of a majority of the City Council to increase that bottom line, if there was even an appetite to do that. And for those who might have been watching the meeting last night, there's lots of other discussions about the funding of what's been already eliminated at the Callahan Center and other positions across the district. So to think that we're going to advocate for that and have that money automatically come back to the schools, I think it's an unfair roll of the dice, frankly, to our employees. So we've got to make some kind of decisive action here. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but we're hedging against
Thank you.
hands that were raised last night.
So I would like to make the motion to approve proposed reductions for FY '27 so we can open discussions.
Moved by Ms. Moshe. Is there a second? I'll second for discussion. Okay, so can you state the motion again? Approve the reductions.
Motion to approve the proposed reductions for the fiscal year 2027.
By 27, moved by Jen, seconded by me. All right, Rich, were you next? Oh, okay. Adam, go ahead.
Thank you. I would have preferred we have conversation before any motions. And so I'm wondering, I believe that the first motion is a really, in my mind, the one to accept Mr. Lynch's recommendation for translation reconfiguration, new special education transportation, and circuit breaker usage from the intentional current FY savings for a total of 1.163844. To me, that is good fiscal management and new information that we didn't have when we first started. I think to me, that is step one. I then think step two is really looking at what was said at last night's city council meeting by at least two counselors, and then there are amendment opportunities. Our role is to advocate for our past vote. We can also be realistic and realize that the city council is not going to give the 3.3 million from our original request. But by immediately tonight getting down to a $2 million gap based on that first potential motion I just suggested, that would make the gap $2,075,576. Then we can have the discussion about the 31 positions. So I would prefer a process that way versus a blanket motion to just accept everything and give in to a process that is still underway. Last night, there was a lot of different discussion and motions by city councilors requesting that the mayor amend the budget or work with the finance subcommittee to talk about it. I feel like we are in that period in June that is normal cycle, and we can have these continued conversations up to their second reading.
Go ahead.
I don't agree with you. We've done this process meeting after meeting. I think it's not fair to employees who are waiting to hear if they're going to have a job or if they should be looking elsewhere. The more we put this off, who is it helping? Who is it benefiting? The city gave us a number. We can't go back to them and say, we don't agree with your number. They already know we don't agree with their number. Nobody wants to see anybody get laid off. The fact is, we're down 750 students. We cannot stay at a budget that we had prior when we had 9,500 students in our district. It doesn't make sense.
All right, we'll keep the discussion going. Willie, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, we say vote for this, and then if we find that we have, say, getting some extra money, people that we ended up having to lay off from this, on this budget, we might have a chance of bringing some of them back. But if we go and keep kicking this can down the road, we are very quickly running out of road. And once we run out of road, things are not going to be pretty. Thank you.
Kyle.
I'll say I agree that we can't keep good educators in limbo, right? I mean, I think, and I agree with Ms. Moshe's point that that would be irresponsible. I mean, these are people that if our city council does not value them, I hope they are teaching somewhere and reaching kids somewhere that does. I know the people here value them, but I was in the joint finance subcommittee meeting, and I asked a direct question about how they got to their $10 million, 3.5% number, and they could not give me a coherent answer other than we started with these numbers, and then we, saw what we had to cut to get there with no plan for, working from what we want for the city back to what that would cost, then iterating and getting to, okay, what, that's an unreasonable number, what can we do, what do you have to pare down, and doing that iterative process. They did none of that, and it's because they don't have a strategic plan. And they talk about not having a strategic plan as if it is some inexorable law of nature that the city of Framingham, even though it's in the charter, does not have a strategic plan. And, the school district does have a strategic plan. And so if they did go to the voters, the city might be embarrassed because people might come back and say, you want me to spend for 1% additional increase, $80 per year for the average, homeowner's tax bill. How is that money going to benefit my family and my community? And their answer is, we don't know, because we don't have a strategic plan. The school district knows how they will spend that money. They have metrics against a strategic plan. We know how much we're going to have to slow down on that strategic plan based on these reductions. We know what we could do with the money, and we can show our homework. I mean, there are teachers in the audience every one of these meetings, and they know who did their homework and did not, and they knew it. They could see it in that joint finance subcommittee meeting. So I think we should continue to advocate, as Adam said, towards, our request is our request, but we do have to be reasonable with, I don't want to see educators in limbo anymore.
Rich, go ahead.
Yeah, I have quite a bit to say about this night. From the beginning, I know I've seen you all as my peers sitting here, that this is not what we wanted. Nobody wants to make these decisions. And Kyle, thank you for saying that, because there is no clarity in how they come up with these numbers. And every time I watch, the explanation of them, I don't understand how they come up with them. So this is definitely not what we want. My own family is going to be affected by this. We use these services for our students. And on top of our current students having a lot of fear, stress, if their parents are going to be taken away, if they have to move to another country because they can't do this, yes, we're losing students, but it's a lot from, the anecdotes that I've been hearing from the fear. And on top of that, we're going to take some of these services away. This is not the school district's fault. Like, this is something that we've been given. And now to make this a fair thing for our staff, for their well-being, fair treatment, we can't keep postponing this. We have to give them an answer, because I can't imagine sitting there wondering, do I have a job or not, and what's going to happen to me next month. So I think ultimately our students are going to be negatively impacted, their futures. I mean, I think about how many years it's going to take us to restore this and bring back some of the staff, but also not even just bringing the staff back to our schools, but what students are going to be losing out on, and not having enough people to cover what's coming, because there is more stress coming in the next 2 years. So all that to say is, it's just horrible. The system of how we come up with these numbers is broken. This is, I feel it for our students. I feel it for my own family too.
We'll go round one. Anyone that wants to speak first? We'll go Brent and then Judy.
Every fiber of my being is dreading this vote. And I did the first time that we had to make cuts in financial decisions as well. I know that this will impact the offerings that we have for our students. And yet I realize that in many ways, our choices are severely limited at this point. And we are sort of stuck with the city council's number. I know that there is still some uncertainty, but I don't see the tea leaves changing greatly, and I think we owe it to our staff. However, I would welcome someone who is better at crafting this, a friendly amendment to Jen's motion that makes it clear that we support our earlier budget, and there was questions at the city council about what impacts to these cuts would have on our students. So I think we include some language that we support our original budget and encourage them to take that into account. I would love for someone else that's more eloquent to craft that.
Would you be willing to consider having an additional motion after this one so that they're not intertwined?
Sure.
Yeah, whatever makes most sense, I guess. Round one, anyone? Judy, you're next.
I'd like to go back just a little bit in the conversation to a comment you made, Dr. Tremblay, about how these are not, these positions are not eliminating programs. But and could you be more specific, for example, about SAGE? And maybe you, Ms. Ludis, could speak to this too. The health educators, because I think what I have perceived is lost in this conversation is what the actual impact of these cuts is or will be. And I think the community believes that it's eliminating programs. But that's not what I heard you say. So could you speak a little bit more to that?
Sure, and I'll share this, if it's okay, with Ms. Lewis. Let me start with, there's mention of, for example, ESL teachers. The first round, including the first 81 list and now the 31 additional, the principals reduced their school staffing relative to their, and I apologize if I'm repeating myself as I've said it in so many different audiences, but I think it's worth underscoring here, right? So when the principals put forward their building-based, in addition to what we've put forward district-based, principals put forward reductions of staff based on the reductions of students in their building. So these are the actuals. These are students who would take advantage of ESL services or special education services. Those students are no longer in our district, right? Some population of those students. So there's ratios that are determined there. That's how they arrived at this. So it wasn't just a, let's just cut this sort of arbitrary number, right? It's relative to the demand. And the students have left, the demand has decreased. What I said to the Finance Subcommittee in the joint meeting was, in an ideal world, if money were flowing and we didn't have that, we would keep the exact same staffing patterns. That would be the ideal, because we could really make that forward traction on our academic progress for our students by doubling down on the support that our students need. There's no denying that. All the points that have been made at the podium are all correct. But we're not left in that situation right now. We're left in a situation of having to close a budget gap that I don't know that we have the ability to do anything but based on what votes have been rendered to date. So that's part of the staffing of, for example, specialized staff, ESL, special education, relative to student demand. With respect to SAGE, we have health, for example, at grade 5. That still continues, but there's a reduction there. I'll let Ann speak to the health side and the SAGE side with the reduction there. The restoration interventionist staff, we've done a lot to mitigate some of the behaviors. I've been in this room multiple times with school committee, with city council, talking about student behaviors, for example. And we have a lot of mitigating measures, and there's some risk here. If we have our restoration interventionist, this is like an in-house room when students are having some challenges, they work with trained staff. And this is a space in the school building, so they're not suspended from school, it's restorative. Now that goes away in this model because it's an add-on element. It's not necessarily a core service. Yes, of course, it's important. And it takes away from a strategic priority, as has been mentioned before. So it's going to be a challenge. And where does that fall? It falls back to the administration or to other staff. In all of these cases, the responsibilities don't go away. They just get reallocated, right? So there's the need. So even though we're saying that there's not an impact to staff, that's the actual physical person. We may have only 9 people, apart from who we can transfer to other spots. But to be sure, there's going to be an impact to these positions not being here, because they do provide a service. So that's sort of the high level of, and without going through every single line as I'm looking at it in front of me. But let me, and then the Mandarin, I'll just comment on that piece quickly. So because of we have a situation of at the high school, we have a possible transfer movement, and we're finding ways to be creative, at least to manage the students who are already moving up to grade 7 and grade 8, to have some opportunity, if I'm misspeaking, Ann, please correct me there, but it's some opportunity for students if it's asynchronous, but some mechanism so that students who've been taking Mandarin in 6th grade can continue that at the middle school and into high school. That program is still there. I think that leaves me with just the SAGE and the health for you to comment on, if that's okay.
Yeah, and I believe that Courtney, is sitting up in the balcony, so I'll talk about SAGE Perfect, Courtney, because I know you can speak more fully about the health. So I know SAGE is, this one's a tough one. This is a tough one to speak about. This is very personal to many of us. My own son was in SAGE, and so I know how valuable the program is. The program is not eliminated by the loss of these positions, but of course, in this situation, there's an impact. There will be 3 teachers left at the elementary level. So on average, 1 teacher would be supporting 3 schools. However, we are going to carefully, so each teacher rather would be supporting 3 schools. Let me clarify that. However, we're going to carefully balance the teachers' assignments as well as the amount of time they spend at each school based on the caseload at each school, so that we're able to provide the services to the students appropriately. I will also add on that separate from these budget conversations and the potential loss of staff, the SAGE teachers have been, they are just, I'm speaking about, I mean, all of the SAGE teachers are wonderful, but right now I'm speaking about elementary. The teachers have thought, they spend so much time looking at the screening tools and making sure that we're actually identifying students properly. They talk about how are we able to best serve the students? And a lot of what they recognize is that there is a need to push into classrooms, and they've actually developed a plan for this year about pushing into the 2nd grade classrooms, because they feel like in the classroom they'll be able to provide better services aligned with the curriculum for the 2nd graders, the newest students, and also students who maybe haven't been identified through the screening measures. I talked earlier this year about the disparity in the schools about who was receiving services, who had been screened and identified for services, and who hadn't. And if the teachers are in the classrooms with the students, they might be able to actually identify students who maybe weren't selected through the screening process, but would benefit from those services. So that model, I'm hoping they'll proceed with that. Those are still conversations that are ongoing, but that is something that the teachers came up with themselves. So we're gonna rely on the teachers to tell us what they feel is best in terms of what the ultimate program model will look like at the elementary level, because they are the ones that are in the schools, in the classrooms, and know what the students need. So, but the program will not be eliminated, and we see the value, we see the benefit to what the SAGE teachers provide. At the middle school level, there will be 1 teacher. It's pretty much the same ratio, 1 teacher supporting the 3 schools, but at the middle school level, it's a much more consultancy model. The students don't want to be pulled out of academic courses, and there's only a 30-minute flex block or that flex block each day. And for each student, 6th grade is all at the same time, 7th grade, and so on. So they're already limited in terms of how they can be pulled into small group settings. So again, the teachers push in or consult with the teachers on how to ensure that students are appropriately challenged at the middle school level. But what I will also tell you is that just this afternoon, I was in a meeting with the middle school administrators, principals and vice principals, and we were talking about potential scenarios for scheduling for next year. It's June. They're working on their schedules for next year. They're trying to make sure that they are, if they're going to have to share staff or not, how are they ensuring that they have a structure in place that meets all of their programmatic needs and ensures that all staff are fully scheduled. And so one thing that came up was, I'm going to put it out there, our SAGE teachers are not required to have a gifted and talented license. Most of them, if I can't speak to, I don't want to say in absolutes that none of them have a gifted and talented license, but I'm pretty confident most, if not all of them, are lacking that license. And that means we are not beholden to a license for somebody to be a SAGE, to provide SAGE services. So if we have teachers in our middle schools that are not fully scheduled, we can train them, provide them with the support so that they can also provide SAGE services as part of their teaching schedule. And we're not limited to a 20% of their teaching load because it's not tied to a license. So we're looking at, my point with this is we're looking at creative solutions to enhance the services that we are able to provide in ways that allow us to optimize the staff that we have in the buildings. So we're thinking about this every day. Again, we're going to really pull the SAGE teachers in to make sure that we are listening to them in terms of what those services will look like, what the schedules will look like, how they will be scheduled into the individual buildings that they're assigned to. And we can certainly provide more details as, decisions are made.
Judy, a follow-up? Okay. And to Lorena, and then me.
I don't know if Courtney was going to speak about health, if you wanted to hear about health as well.
Sorry, please.
Sure. Good evening, everyone, and I'm happy to speak a little bit about health. So I think when we think about health as well, it's not a elimination of a program, but rather a restructuring for a couple of reasons. And the overarching goal of that is really, it's not about reducing or minimizing the importance of health education at the elementary level, but rather a restructuring to deliver it in a format that's more developmentally responsive, potentially, a little bit more equitable across our schools. So right now, in our 9 elementary schools, 6 currently have a 1.0 health teacher, and then 3 actually share a teacher on a rotational model. And we've been looking at, and we've talked in prior meetings about sort of the dose or the load of instruction that students get at different ages, especially K1, even 2, and what sort of that right developmental balance for students. And we know that at elementary age, students benefit from focused, high engagement learning experiences. And so our hope is that through a trimester rotation, it'll allow that instruction to be delivered in more concentrated units, so that they are more aligned with children's attention spans and developmental needs as we restructure the model, while also ensuring equity of experience across all of our elementary schools. So one health educator will be assigned, similar to what Ms. Ludis had talked about with SAGE, but to 3 schools. And will rotate in a trimester basis. This also allows us to provide students to have those lessons sort of more condensed, so when they are more targeted, we're not filling in the gaps with additional learning experiences that might sort of feel disjointed or disconnected. So this will allow for continuity of the units within the health education curriculum, in addition to being a bit more developmentally aligned for that dose for students as a special. So in short, they will still receive health, it'll just be in a different model. And Ms. Kinsella will still remain providing grade 5 puberty lessons and her health instruction as well. That will not be changing at all. Thank you.
All right, up next, Lorena.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Balaco and Ms. Ludis, for this information you had already shared with the committee before. But I really wish that we had been given all of this information when the original proposal had been shared, because I think that our constituents, my constituents, I'll speak for my district, didn't understand fully, and myself included, I didn't understand that what the impact would actually be. And so I regret that we were not provided with this information from the very beginning, and that we are here today now discussing the original proposal. What I also wanted to mention is I think we need to move this forward. I don't think it's fair to teachers or to anyone who doesn't know whether they'll be an employee of FPS next year, and I really think that we need to move this forward. I do want to just be very clear that my vote tonight does not mean that I support the process that got us here. This year's budget process, I believe, fell short of what our community deserves. And I also think that of what this committee should expect of itself. I think that we owe our constituents, our educators, our staff, and especially our students so much better. We can't really allow this to become the standard for how Framingham develops and adopts its school budget. And so I think it's been months and months, and 240-something days is just really not how we should be operating. So I think we can do better. I think we can use the feedback that we all probably have from this process to make sure that we have a much more transparent, much more clear process that our constituents fully understand and that our educators can actually feel comfortable with or okay with. Because I'm not sure, but I imagine that we're going to be in the same situation next year. And so I just wanted to put that out there.
All right, up next, as a member, I do agree with the comments that have been made about educators being in limbo. And then also, to my fears, I think that if we had to issue pink slips to our non-PTS, our non-professional teacher staff, I think that would be a train wreck and crush morale and devastate dual language programs, who these teachers are dependent on their employment status to get visas and other details that are nuanced to that effect. I would just ask that if these cuts go forward, if these reductions are approved, would it be reasonable to request periodic access scores, for example, for ML students, to track and monitor the student achievement? And then with looking at the restoration interventionists, would there be additional data that we can expect you to report out on periodically of, behavior code of conduct updates or metrics like that, so that we can continually readjust and just have a sense of any decline, perhaps, that would result from these reductions?
Absolutely, we can quantify this and give those reports.
Okay, thank you. All right, round two. I think everyone had a round one. Go ahead, Adam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one quick clarifying question on the previous SAGE discussion, and then I have budget comment, if that's okay. Could you clarify, if these SAGE positions are adjusted as proposed, are there current students with current teachers who are going to have different SAGE teachers in front of them next year?
Yes, because right now we have more teachers. So if there are two teachers eliminated at the elementary level, then those two teachers will not be serving. The students who have those teachers now will not have them. Correct.
So, thanks. So that brings me to the budget. And so like the continuity of losing a human being in front of a student because of a budget situation, in this case, $180,480 is that SAGE line item, right? That to me is where, if we need to balance our budget, and we absolutely have to, I strongly believe that the time for that is after the budget is signed by the mayor, after approval by the city council. There are no pink slips. That's not happening. Like, that is an irrational fear. We are focused on this list of 31, not the entire district. And so where I'm coming from is, last night was an amazing amount of people at the podium, a first reading that is open to amendments, multiple city councilors asking for the direct school impacts and wanting to know what more money would be necessary. I again believe that our first vote, after seeing the realities of the fiscal situation, I watched every single finance subcommittee meeting this last weekend to catch up on the last four, including one I had to watch twice because there was a lot to unpack there. I believe that there is an opportunity for us to protect some, not all, but some of these remaining 31 positions. And that is where I'm coming from, that if this vote was 2 weeks from tonight and we are legally required to balance the budget, I'm going to vote yes, and I'm going to vote on a balanced budget plan. My concern is the process and the timing of where we are right now, that I strongly believe it's our job to advocate for the budget that we already asked the mayor of, and to now adjust it based on what's new. What's new is what Mr. Lynch put tonight about translation, new special education transportation, and circuit breaker savings to get our budget down from 3.2 to approximately 2 million. Then you get to this list. And that's where I feel like there's an opportunity to advocate. I feel that the difference between pain and really intense pain and changes to this list came from the mayor's second budget reduction that the city council asked him to do. That number is $1,239,420. So I came into this meeting wondering if there was a way for us to encourage the city council and the mayor to look at that first number and understand the impacts and focus on saving student-facing positions by somewhat of a compromise, that we are no longer asking for the 3.2 million, and instead we would be asking for the 1.2 million, and working through the city process as outlined in the charter for the next 2 weeks, focusing on the questions and emails we are getting, and I believe respectfully doing our jobs as school committee members to advocate for education first and foremost, and only balance the budget when forced to after the process concludes. That's where I'm coming from. I totally respect everyone at this table, everyone's opinions, and understand that 240 days, you don't want it to become 254 days. Well, I strongly believe that 254 days is fine if we can work and have a chance to save some people's positions.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of points that I want to add to that. I appreciate the comments, and I know this is difficult for everyone. I'm concerned that even tonight, we're predicating any decision we make on a vote of a city council that is not finalized. It's a first reading. And the next final reading of that with any potential amendments that may come as a result of the reorganization, we have no idea how that may or may not impact the current number, which is $4 million, right, Les? I know you're talking about a different number, but if we base on what's current and we try to read the tea leaves of what's happening, we miss a statutory deadline. If that number is lower, that's the pink slip. It's not like running false alarming. That's a real statutory obligation we have, because if we're trying to balance all of this on the cuts that we proposed, which are not even agreeable. If that number is lower at all, we have to now cut into staff that we never put on a list, whom we didn't notify. So that's the reality of it. I'm just trying to put that in, we started this budget process earlier, hoping we wouldn't be faced with this, but this keeps getting moved down the line. I was even, mentioning last night, from the 16th to possibly the 23rd of June. I just don't think we can keep our educators. We're going to lose them anyway. If there's people who are watching tonight, they're going to say there's no decision on this. If there, I'm not saying there won't be, but we're going to lose people regardless of the fear of we don't have an answer, because we're hoping for the right one that comes, and I don't know that it's coming, if I'm just being honest. And as far as transparency and the narrative and the explanation and the justification, I'm not sure where we've missed that mark. I know it was commented, but we've been providing it for 5 months. February 19th, we provided a memo that detailed every single one of these positions and the impact of them. So I'm not sure what we've missed on the administrative side of that, and if we've not done a good job communicating it. It's been in every packet. It's been on the website. I'm not sure who's not looking at it, but we've provided it. So we'll think about that next time, and as we've already begun to process FY28, and we'll lead off with principals. If we have to make cuts again, principals will be the ones in the room, and we'll publish everything. But this has not ever been a secretive process. We've had the impact analysis for 5 months, and none of this has changed. So I just want to be on record stating that point, but I'll stop there. Those are just the facts that I wanted to share about my approach to this budget process.
All right. Thank you, Jen. You're up next.
Thank you. If we pass this motion to approve these reductions and we get more money, then we can relook at these reductions, but we need to notify people. I just think making this process another 15 days or up to that 254-day mark, as Mr. Freudberg pointed out, what benefit is there of that? And I'm going to ask you that question because you're the one who made that comment.
Sure. Last night, multiple city councilors asked for us for input and gave opportunity for future amendments on a variety of different matters. I, again, think that there's an opportunity for the elected public bodies in our community to collaborate here and to explain impacts. And I want to be clear, I am not looking for two things. I am not looking to pit city versus other departments. I'm not looking for any additional school funding to come out of other departments. This would be a combination or one of the other of new tax levy or free cash that is out of our control, how they do it. But I'm clear on that. I'm not looking for, if the school budget is increased another 1.2 million, which is my proposal, that 1.2 million be deducted elsewhere. This is about supporting educator positions and the timing and the process, where I feel like we're in the middle of the process and shouldn't be giving up. And again, to Dr. Tremblay's comments, this is the list that's being considered. The city council vote of last Thursday night was 5-0 in finance subcommittee and confirmed by, I think, unanimous last night in the first reading. I understand that could change. That committed to the school district based on the pink slips to avoid pink slips. So to me, that's a non-issue. It's not happening. There's no 45% pink slips coming. And so we should take that out of the conversation right now and focus on these 31. And so I think that there is an opportunity. Someone just said, I forget who it was, what if we get more money? It's been talked about. Well, the only way to get more money is to be extremely specific and ask for exactly what we need. So we should reduce our $3.2 million gap tonight by agreeing with Lincoln on that first cut of 1.1 million, and then we can talk about, in my mind, the second piece of the 31 positions. There are some of those positions that have nothing to do with enrollment loss and that are going to be really impactful. And there are still a couple on there that we didn't know enough about, to your point earlier, the first round. I don't question the transparency, actually. I just question the deep dive about the questions in the conversation. I think the transparency in the packet on February 19th was fine. Like, that's not my issue. It's more of a, did we really ask the questions that Ms. Steyer just asked about SAGE and health? And I am personally now more comfortable with the health cut. At the same time, I'm not comfortable with the SAGE or the ESL cuts, right, and the interventionists. Like, so it comes down to it, and at the end of the day, I know that I personally cannot have every single line item that I want with this budget crisis, but I believe that the real challenge comes from the second round of cuts. It is the mayor's first budget, $2 million is manageable, 3.2 is extreme. That's where I'm coming from.
We originally voted on, I think it was a $190 million budget. We submitted that. We all voted on it. The mayor came back with 188 and then went down to 187. What makes us think he's going to go back to 188?
We're not going in circles here. Okay, so round two, Jen, Adam, somebody else. Go ahead, Kyle.
I know a lot has already been brought up about SAGE, and so my question about SAGE, and I think Ann would probably be the best one to answer this, is, you know, we're sort of running an experiment here with reducing reducing that staff, and what I'd like to see data on as much as possible is equity data in SAGE, because it's always, you know, in gifted programs, it is always a concern. And is there a way we could track year over year from this year to next year and beyond? Because sometimes there is a lag in effects of our demographics who are utilizing SAGE resources. So everything from, race, language spoken in the home, educational attainment of parents, because my concern is that with those programs, there is a tendency for, you know, children who are more affluent, of more educated parents, often access those services at way higher rates. And I would hate to see, I know we've made progress in that direction, I'd hate to see a backslide because of this, but I'd hate worse for it to be happening and us not to see it.
I had turned it on to green already. I would be happy to answer this. The demographic data, the language spoken in the home, we can even, like, their English language, like, are they an L, English language learner status? We can do that. Students with disabilities, we can do. The education of the parents, I think, would be very challenging because, number one, we don't collect that data of the families. We could survey the families of the students in the program. We may or may not get responses from everybody. That would skew the data. We also wouldn't have it to compare against the larger school population because we don't survey that of all families. So that one, I would say, that's probably not going to give us very accurate data, but the others we can definitely do, and more. High need status, income, low income status, those kinds of things. What I will tell you is that in my time in the district prior to leaving and then returning, and even now, the the SAGE teachers and anybody involved in SAGE has truly struggled with the screening process to identify students. That's why when I mentioned earlier that the teachers are looking at pushing into the second grade classrooms to identify the students, or potentially identify more students who are not identified through our current screening measures. But the screening measures, we've tried all sorts of different models, and we come up against this. So I 100% agree with you that tracking this data is incredibly important. That's why I shared the demographic data. I don't remember which meeting it was. I bet Adam probably knows which meeting it was. He's got that kind of memory. But it's because that data is so concerning. What I would argue, though, is that I understand what you're saying, that this feels like an experiment. We're trying to navigate all of the challenges and try to find creative solutions. That's why I talked about the middle school strategy for increasing the amount of SAGE services without increasing the staff, by utilizing staff who are under-scheduled so that they have full schedules in a meaningful way, rather than sticking them in as a co-teacher in a PE class or in an ELA class. How about coaching them and training them in how to deliver SAGE services? That's how every other teacher in the program was brought into the program. So going back to your original question, the causal relationship between the reduction in the staff may or may not actually be there, even if we do see a change one way or the other. It could be the change in how we're trying to identify and screen students. It could be the way services are provided. Push-in models right out of the gate are going to serve more students, because every student in the class benefits from a push-in model, because every student is getting access to that teacher rather than the pull-out services, which only work for the selected students. So any of those other variables may have an impact as well, but collecting this data and sharing this out and reporting on it is definitely something we can do.
Thank you.
All right, up next is Rich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lincoln, I think you've talked about this briefly before. Of the people affected by these reductions, how many of them may be able to find a role throughout the district?
Okay, so we would include transfers and open positions. Or transfers, actually, would be 21. So 21 of the 112 would be transferred to a new position. Okay, and then just to keep going, there's 37 open positions that are being proposed to, and this is in the total of the 81 prior and the 31 now. There are 39 non-reappoints. So whether budget crisis or not, that would still happen. And then 15 actual cuts to actual people.
So ultimately, 15 people will not be with the district.
15 plus the non-reappoints.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, anybody round two? Rich. Okay. Adam, go ahead.
I mean, I don't know if this idea matters. Maybe it's so simple. What if there's a motion of, if this budget number remains, here's our balanced budget plan? That's one thing. That, I believe, is Ms. Moshe's motion. Secondary is the motion during the budget process that is not done yet to request that the city council work with the mayor to go back to the mayor's first budget number to focus on saving some student-facing positions. I'm wondering if that dual approach is something people would be willing to consider, so we're not, I don't want to say giving up, we're not giving up, I get it. We're all doing what we can. But I believe we're acting too soon when there are positions out there that could potentially, not all 31, but that some of them could be adjusted because they are not dealing with enrollment loss. And so, you know, the first motion could be amended to that effect as I spoke to, and then another motion could be something such as motion to request that the city council work with the mayor to utilize his first FPS budget submission, restoring $1,239,420 in order to allow for the preservation of student-facing positions. That's what I've been getting at the whole night, and I wonder if that type of a dual motion concept would be appropriate for this committee to consider. So we're giving certainty on the balanced budget if that number remains, while not saying it's over, while asking for more and explaining and responding to some specific questions that have come up from counselors.
So the motion on the floor is to approve the proposed reduction from FY27. And Lincoln, correct me if I'm wrong, but that brings us to $187,418,448.
218,000, 187, 218, 448.
More there.
Yep.
So that's the motion. So Jen, do you want to change your motion?
No. There could be a motion after we do the vote. As Adam suggested, we could possibly do something like that, or something like Brent wants to do, to put on record that none of us are in agreement with this, that we are in agreement with our first budget. Maybe combine their two motions.
Okay, so we'll take the first one first, and then we'll draft a second one, and we can come up with the third one too if we want. Any further discussion?
Can I just ask a clarifying question, Mr. Freudberg? I'm trying to make sure I understand the math on that, right? So it was the $2 million reduction, then it became a $4 million reduction from the mayor's number. Then there was the Chapter 70 add back, right? So, but the net ask is for 1.2, but it's still a $3.2 million gap if you go to the 4 million number. So I'm trying to understand. I understand how the Chapter 70, 160 per student gets added back. And I know I'm speaking like all over the place, but I think you're following me. I'm just trying to figure out, of the 1.2, that doesn't satisfy the roster of 31 positions. So how do we reconcile that list against that number?
Sure, if I could answer, since I was addressed.
Does that my question make sense? Okay.
So starting from the top, the $4 million gap, the mayor already agreed to the Chapter 70. So now it's a $3.2 million gap, right? So then from there, to get it down further, it's Mr. Lynch's one proposal tonight I've already talked about, translation and SPED. That gets it down to 2 million. Yes, sure, we could have a strategy of asking for 2 million. At the same time, there are some positions that we didn't have information, and some of the and the principal's work was not fully heard, and that is where I think that of that list of 31, there's an opportunity for a compromise, and coalescing around the mayor's first budget that he and the CFO already supported. That, to me, is the pathway. That would result in a $3.2 million gap going down to an approximately $831,000 gap. I might be off by 10,000, so 800 or so thousand. We would still have work to do, and I'm not going to presuppose what that work would be, but there are some positions on this list that I already talked about tonight that I feel like now could be okay, and there are others that I'm like, no way, right, because the impact. That's where I am. So the long answer to the breakdown, but let's say we have a motion to the city council and they and the mayor agree with us that this is a compromised budget that can work for our community. We would then work with that list of 31 and figure out how to take that list of 31 that is at approximately 2.2 million and then have a gap of 800,000 for the rest of it. 820, 830,000. That's my focus.
Okay. Thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a mixed message in the community thinking that the 1.2 would satisfy the 31 positions that would be fully restored. It would be still just a portion of that list to be determined which positions. But the other point of that is it would go back to the mayor's first number of a $2 million reduction, not a $4 million. But the math isn't quite that even. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on my understanding of that.
No, you're right. Again, it comes down to collaboration, compromise, doing something but not getting everything. And because the mayor, school district, and school committee, and CFO were all at or above that first budget number, I feel like where we are now and what we're hearing from the public and where the impacts are, that the pain would be slightly reduced if we could somehow get 1.2 million more.
Thank you
That's
very
where
much.
I'm coming from.
Thank you for that clarification.
All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll take a vote. Again, the motion is approve the proposed reduction from FY '27, district recommendations 187218448. All those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. All those opposed, 1, 8, 1, it passes.
Madam Chair,
Go
can I
ahead.
just explain why I voted no?
Yes, absolutely.
Only because there was no language that had at the end to balance the budget. That's why.
Okay. Brent, you want to?
Sure. May I make the motion that we also submit this language with our budget? That the school committee continues to recommend the mayor and the city council fund the budget that was initially requested and passed on, someone will have to help me with the date, by the school committee, minus the dollar amount from those top 3 items on the list that we approved tonight. We caution that the loss of additional student-facing positions in the budget approved on June 3rd, 2026 will impact the offerings and support Framingham Public Schools is able to offer our students and families. We sincerely request that the mayor and the city council consider alternatives that allow us to preserve as many of these positions as possible. I can email that to you if that's
Please do. Moved by seconded by Willie. Moved by Brent, seconded by Willie. Well written, thank you. Any further discussion? Go ahead.
Thank you for that sentiment. I think that I feel very heard tonight, so thank you for all the chances to speak. And would that motion, the number you just said, would that be the number of 2,075,576, which is the full list of 31?
I'll be honest, I didn't consider the math.
Well, putting aside the dollar amount, is that requesting the full 31 positions?
Yes, I think our budget minus the top 3 items, the circuit breaker, the translation services, and what was the third one? Yes.
So here, if I may, thank you for that clarification.
So you thinking go for the 190? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, the 190, because of Mr. Lynch's creativity, is already down to 189 approximately, right? So it then becomes a difference between 187, 188, or 189. And, you know, I think the content of your motion is great. It's only that number. And I wonder, actually, if we go back to what we did, a previous school committee asked for a range. And so I feel the range should be, because some of these positions, I can't speak for others, on this list are ones that we perhaps could have included in the 81 last time because we just didn't fully bake that in, right? And so that's where I'm coming from of the 1.2 to 2 million range. I mean, I'm fine asking for 2, but I don't want to ask for 2 and get 0. I think if we ask for 1.2 and we have a better shot at it because we're justifying it with the exact positions. That's maybe a slight process difference, but I appreciate the sentiment. I'm happy to vote for it. I'm just trying to think about what is achievable under these circumstances after watching too many minutes of meetings.
So we have a move by Brent, and seconded by Willie. Did you want to adjust any of the wording before, as suggested, or stay with the main motion, maybe like?
I'd appreciate staying with the main.
Yep.
The language at the end to preserve as many of these positions as possible, I think, realizes that the full number may not be possible with the city side budget and all that they're wrestling with.
Gotcha. Perfect. Okay, any further discussion? Adam?
Thank you, and this is hopefully my last time. Would it be possible to add to the motion, I don't, maybe this is too complicated for them, but like a minimum, like I'm just worried that this is not going to result in an actual change if it's not data driven to the direct list. That's all.
Okay, so all those in favor, raise your hand. 9-0-0. Passes. Thank you. Well written, Brent, and I appreciate all of your passion. Everyone's commitment to our kids. Anything else we want to discuss while we're on FY '27? Are we closing this out? Huh. Don't look back, keep going. Okay. All right, subcommittee reports. Finance and Operations, Willie, you're on warrants.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. William Labarge, warrant total for the 3rd of this month, $929,111.56, and a payroll total of $6,435,326.21 on the dates of May 22nd and May 29th. Thank you.
All right, policy, Jen, you're up.
Thank you. The Policy Subcommittee met May 11th, 2026, and approved Policy JFAB and updates to the policy development and review process. Proposed edits were made to Policy JFAB to reflect the school committee vote on Policy JFBB. Massachusetts Inter-District School Choice Program with not allowing admission of non-resident students and with an annual review of Policy JFBB to continue to occur. Proposed edits were made to update the development and review process to remove required referral as previously voted on by the full committee. Also, what was on there to review was the use of an attorney. And I'm actually going to take that out because Joanna and I tried to go back and find where the discussion was as a full committee, and we could not find it. So touche, Adam. So we're going to leave in the attorney as my proposed edit, and that's it. We need a motion for a second reading.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Martinhill.
Second.
Second by Mr. Labarge. And we, motion to approve policy.
Any
JFBB.
discussion?
Yep, any discussion. Thank you. It's late. Any discussion?
Seeing none?
Seeing none, roll call, well, just raise your hand. All in favor? That is 8. Lorena, you're opposed, correct? So it is 8-1, thank you. 8-1-0, thank you. Motion to approve, so the second motion would be to approve policy JFAB for second reading and updates to the policy. Oh, we just did that. We're good. We're good. Thank you.
All right. Any other subcommittee reports? I don't think so.
Building and Grounds met last night, and we discussed the, let me see what we did discuss. The condition of buildings, what do we call that? There's a name for it.
Annual condition.
Annual condition of buildings report. We have, Lincoln spoke earlier about the state of the capital projects at each of the buildings, so I won't go into that. We also discussed our goals that I think we're going to have a second meeting to approve this soon. It is getting late. So we also discussed requesting an executive session to discuss for the full committee to discuss the security practices at schools, and with a look towards, there have been questions about from the community about the city's use of flock cameras, and we want to have policy that eventually that guarantees student privacy while still maintaining security, and we want to talk towards that, and that's all from us.
Was that Building and Grounds executive session?
No, we didn't do it
Okay.
exactly. We want to schedule one with the full committee.
Yes, okay, yes.
To discuss that.
100%.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, thank you so much for your report. We're on to approval of gifts, field trips, and minutes. So gifts, we'll start with the gifts. Early education, Fuller, Fine and Performing Arts, McCarthy. Items include books, teacher appreciation lunch, violin, funds for field trip, bus transportation, photography equipment, and 5-gallon buckets. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Moved by Rich, seconded by Jen. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of accepting, raise your hand. All right, I see 9 hands, 900. Next up, we have, there's an advertising one. So is there a motion to approve advertising for the donation of 5-gallon buckets to McCarthy in the form of the company's logo on the buckets? Motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Willie, seconded by Kyle. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call. All those in favor, raise your hand. 900. All right, field trip. FHS girls basketball to St. Joseph's College, girls summer basketball shootout field trip. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Do you have a question?
I just wanted to make sure there's some anticipated per student fees, and I just wanted to make sure we had a provision to cover that for families that can't afford that cost.
Well, thank you for asking. We do, and the organizers have included that in there, so we have scholarships made available for that. Thank you.
All right, all those in favor of approving this?
Point of order?
Yeah.
Was there a second given?
Was there a motion?
There was a
I did.
second?
Jen made the motion. Willie, would you like to make the second?
Yeah, I'll make the second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
All in favor?
Can't misstep over here. We'll go, all those in favor, raise your hand. 900. And then minutes, March 4th, 2026 minutes will be added to the next meeting. Okay, so can we approve the February 25th minutes, February 25th, 2026? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Jen, seconded by Kyle. Any discussion? Roll call vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. 900 passes. Additional public comment. So same guidelines apply. You have 3 minutes. Please just say your name for the record, and we'll start your timer. Whoever's first. We have 2 people. Who'll go first? Okay. He's usually, sometimes he's quick. Mr. Bowles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Robert Bowles, District 4. 64-year Framingham taxpayer. I just want to make a comment on this budget thing you've been talking about. We paid Dr. Tremblay a lot of money to do the job. This is not his first day on the job. Let him take care of it. It's that simple, period. We could be dealing with some of our past superintendents. Thank God that's not the case. I've been attending school meetings here for over 30 years. These things happen. We have to deal with it. I've seen this happen many times in the 30-plus years I've worked in public schools. This isn't something new. It's not pleasant, but it isn't something new. Let Bob take care of it. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Next up. I have the sign-up sheet up here, but do you want to just say your name for the record?
Sorry, I haven't come to one of these before, so I didn't realize there was a sign-up sheet. So
It's okay.
My apologies. I'm also not much of a public speaker, so please bear with me. But my name's Emily Giugio. So I was going to read something I emailed probably to many of you, and then a couple other thoughts as I've been listening tonight. But, first, I appreciate everyone's, hard work and concern, and I know nobody wants to see anybody go, and we want the best for our kids, and it's not a great position to be in for anybody. But I just want to highlight, and maybe this wasn't the meeting to do it, maybe there's another meeting that I should be going to do that, the importance of these positions that we're talking about. What I had written was that I am writing in regards to the school budget cut discussions. While I understand that budgeting to cover all the needs of our city can be tricky, we cannot afford, for the sake of our children, their future, and the future of Framingham, to take away any more from our education system than we already have. We've lived in Framingham since June of 2010. I have 3 children. 2 of them attend Potter, 1 attends Cameron. While some children are lucky enough not to need extra support, many need it in order to be successful, including all 3 of mine. I know there are many more that rely on the support and resources, the positions and programs you are thinking of cutting, because without them, they could not access the material information they need. The children will fail, they will be lost, and all the other students around them will be negatively impacted if we go through with some of the cuts we're proposing. And again, I know we can't have everything, but I want to make sure we're really thinking about how this is going to impact them. The teachers will also be affected. They are already overloaded. We cannot put any more on them. It's unreasonable to expect them to run a classroom of 20-plus kids without all the different supports that they need to help them. And the recovery would be long for staff and students if things are going the way that I was hearing before I came in tonight. Without our special education teachers, ESL teachers, student behavior support, SAGE program, campus aides, arts and athletics staff, and all the other student-facing positions, and teacher supports, our students will lose opportunities to learn at an acceptable level and at the level they deserve to be successful in. My oldest has an IEP since kindergarten, initially for processing delay, executive functioning skills. Now it's refined to ADD and dyslexia. He receives social support and counseling as needed. He needs every single support he receives. And even with that, he's still behind in reading and writing and spelling. So I can't imagine where he would be without them. And he's had them since kindergarten. My youngest is autistic. He is in a traditional classroom, which is good, but he needs support from the special educators for all areas. He has speech, he has social support. We're worried about how he's going to keep up as he goes through. And I don't think, those supports are vital to his success to be able to stay in that traditional classroom. My middle child is gifted and complex. We've talked about SAGE tonight, so he's in the SAGE program. It provides essential support, challenges, and opportunities for the children enrolled. We already struggle with keeping him interested in school and going without complaint. So he needs a program that can support that profile. Am I going over?
Yeah, we're at about 3 minutes, so if you don't mind wrapping up.
Okay. So, I would just say that it's, it really impacts their education here. And, we're talking about the improvements in the chronic abscess, I'm sorry, apparently can't say that correctly. But, that's going to impact it. A kid's not going to want to come to school if they don't have the support they need. They're not going to want to come to school if they don't feel safe because the kid's throwing a desk. That's going to impact everything that you guys are trying to achieve. So I just really caution you to push as much as you can back on the city council and show them why you need this and why our kids need this.
Thank you.
That's it. So,
Thank you so much.
sure.
Okay, so adding one additional announcement. I don't remember if I said this earlier, but June 9th is a date for you to hold in your calendar, only because I need the evaluation forms back by then to assemble packets. So an email was sent through Joanna about Dr. Tremblay's evaluation along with the templates. MASC field rep is available. If you have questions, I can give you her contact information if you don't have her contact information. Sorry, I was unable to get that second goals evaluation workshop up. It was kind of low turnout on a couple of the days, and I just think we weren't able to really sync our schedules to all meet. But she's available, has made that abundantly clear too if people want help working through these documents. So I need them by June 9th just to start assembling them for the packet, which they'll be voted on June 17th. So I need that for that packet deadline. Always adds an extra challenge to getting everything ready on time. What's that? Oh, yes, and there's cake for Deborah. I lost Jen. Thank you for reminding us. It's well-deserved at this point. Okay, our next school committee meeting is June 17th, 2026. I will accept a motion to adjourn. Moved by Jen, seconded by Brent. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call. All those in favor, raise your hand. All right, 900. This meeting is adjourned at 10:51 PM.